is 95.7.
We're talking about Warriors this week alongside Sam Lubman. This is Dan Devone. The night after Jake Paul did whatever it is that he did to Mike Tyson, the Warriors hang on in a very bizarre, ugly, I don't even know if I want to classify it as basketball in the last quarter and a half. They went at 123-118, and Sammy, this team is 10-2. They are just a half game back of OKC, a team that they beat earlier this year. Just your thoughts, first of all, on the game last night, and obviously we'll get into the Warriors. How are you this morning?
Yeah, no, Warriors did a better job of holding on than Mike Tyson did last night. And by the way, I watched 0 seconds of that fight.
Well, I had to. It was guilty pleasure, and it was one of the saddest things I've seen.
I know we're Warriors this week, and we'll definitely be talking a lot of Warriors today, but maybe we'll throw some. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that debacle at Dallas. That was taking place at Dallas, right?
Jerry Jones world.
Yeah, the debacle at Dallas. So maybe we can talk about that at some point this show. I didn't pay any attention to it because, yeah, I was watching Warriors Grizzlies last night. That was probably as much of a blowout as a 5-point win can be, which is a weird thing to say. I mean, damn, the Grizzlies finished the game on a 16-6 run the final 2 minutes, built on the back of probably every single free throw that franchise has ever taken ever. Yeah, you could see the frustration in Steve Kerr afterwards that he had with the officiating in the last quarter there.
Disgusting.
Oh my God. It was just like, I know I'm a weirdo. I like going to see the refs. Said no one ever. But yeah, I mean, that was a game. The first.
Whoa. Let's just stop right there. What is it that you're looking for in refereeing, and why do you enjoy the refs?
If it gets to the point where, like last night, where every single play seems to lead to a whistle and it's a blowout on a Friday night, like, come on, guys. Like, let's let them play here a little bit. I was watching the game with my girlfriend, Allie, last night, and every single time she's just losing her mind over the stoppages every single time.
So when you say you go to see the referees, it's not because you're a fan. You sort of put them under the microscope.
Well, no, yeah. It's just, to be honest, Dan, no one goes to see the referees. Like, that's the whole point. Like,
which is why I stopped you mid-sentence.
Yeah, well, I was trying to make a joke that just failed to land there properly.
Oh, all right.
That's a great start. No, but like, yeah, no one wants to go see the referees. That's the thing. No one is going to these games to see the refs do whatever it is that the refs do. They want to see these guys play, and unfortunately, it ends up overshadowing what was, not the most incredible game for the Warriors. But the Warriors are 10-2. They're looking really good while they're doing it. And what's crazy is, Draymond Green got thrown out of that game last night. I don't think anyone even really cares. Like, that just shows how far things have gone with Draymond. So
it's always a fun game.
Exactly.
There's a lot to unpack in what was sort of a ho-hum. I think a game that the Warriors pretty much dominated throughout. 123-118. There's the Emirates NBA Cup, which I think motivated a lot of what it is that we saw towards the end of the game with the point differential that certainly was on the mind of Memphis. We can talk about that. We do have to discuss Draymond Green and getting tossed from yet another basketball game. Steph Curry had a subpar contest, yet the Warriors continued to win, and they didn't need their superstar last night. But I do want to start with the NBA Cup, because I think a lot of what it is that you talked about, that 16-6 finish on the part of Memphis, is motivated by the point differential, which is taken into account in trying to get to an NBA Cup. First of all, your general thoughts on the Emirates. Let's not forget the sponsor, the Emirates NBA. By the way, have you ever flown Emirates?
I have not, but I've heard it's one of the better.
So I have not flown it either, but I have a friend of mine in New York who flew it internationally. I want to say he went to Germany. And he goes, Dan, he flew first class because his company put him up. And he's like, this thing was bigger than my studio in New York City. It had like a bed. He's like, I didn't want to leave. Like, we landed and I didn't want to get out of bed. He's like, it had my own little personal bathroom. People were serving me
Sounds
drinks.
like a flying hotel.
He's like, first class in Emirates Airline is real deal. And so obviously, they got the money to sponsor something like that of the NBA Cup. But just sort of your thoughts on the NBA Cup and what it is that we witnessed last night with the point differential and so on and so forth as everybody tries to make their way to Las Vegas.
To be honest, I'm kind of whatever on the NBA Cup. Like, I'm not going to, like last year, the Warriors, they didn't even get to the final 8 in Las Vegas, and I really just did not care. There's only one championship that I think truly matters in the NBA. And I know they try to put some incentives on the NBA Cup to make the players care about it, but a couple extra million here or there for a lot of these guys doesn't really matter. And to be honest, I don't really care if, Andrew Wiggins makes an extra $1 million because the Warriors win the NBA Cup this year. It's nothing against Andrew Wiggins, but just, these guys getting a little bit more money in their wallets does nothing for me. I don't think you're raising any banners. No one's wearing any of the T-shirts. There's not going to be any parade down Market Street to celebrate any sort of NBA Cup title there. It just seems, Dan, like every conversation about the NBA Cup, it just feels like it's centered around why are we doing this and what can we do to make it better? Yeah. And I feel like that's not a good sign if that's kind of where we're at. I mean, it's the second year, so maybe the how can we make it better conversation does make a little sense, but if that's all we're really talking about it, it's just, do we really need it, I guess, is kind of where I'm at.
Well, I could tell you that the NBA would probably tell you that we're trying to capture some interest at this part of the season to incentivize players when there could be a little bit lag, right? You get the NFL going on before this becomes the complete focus on the NBA. As, it's a long season. We're talking all the way till summer until we decide a champion.
First week of April is when the
So I think a lot of this was just incentivizes how do we provide more entertainment for this time of the season? What they miss on is that I thought last year I bought in on the Tuesday and Friday nights and the courts looking different. And
I do like the different courts, some of them.
Yeah, and you could see that the players were playing with some juice. Draymond was certainly into it a year ago, and you could see Memphis doing what it is that they did last night. So it works on that level. I think things looked really anticlimactic last year. Like, okay, so you finally get to the championship. The Lakers win the thing, and it's like, did that really land with anybody?
Well, I think that was probably what the NBA would have wanted, just to be able to say that, LeBron James won the first NBA Cup. I think maybe that gives it some sort of legitimacy. I do think the NBA Cup, who was really good for, was Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers last year. That really was kind of a big coming out party for him last year. So in that sense, you allow kind of guys to kind of take that step from really good to, much more noticeable players.
Put them on the map, certainly.
Yeah, supports guys like, Halliburton, I think, was on the map. I don't want to say that it was putting Halliburton on the map, because I do think, he was kind of on the map before, but his presence on that map last year definitely elevated. So, yeah, if you want to use the NBA Cup as a way to, young players kind of elevating their profile around the league, like, yeah, I'll listen to that theory at least.
Well, you talk about the young players, and certainly Tyrese Halliburton was able to take advantage. And it wasn't necessarily about Halliburton, a younger player, but I think the way Indiana was playing with the ball movement and sort of, just 5 out. And it was this new style. Well, it wasn't new, but it was something that Indiana had really cultivated and really was able to demonstrate center stage thanks to the NBA Cup. So when you highlight the younger players, here's why I don't want the Warriors to have anything to do with this thing. The last thing they need is an extra game, playing in that NBA championship game, which is going to be an intense game, right? You do not need that. If the focus on this team and the further they go along and the more we buy in and drink the Kool-Aid that this thing is real, and we're now 12 games in, this team is 10-2, and you start thinking about playoffs, first round, second round, Western Conference Finals, which sounded like a pipe dream at the beginning of the season, becomes very, very real with every passing game. The last thing I want, Sammy, is for soon-to-be 37-year-old Steph Curry and a 36-year-old Draymond Green to be playing in an extra quote-unquote championship game.
Especially when those stats don't even matter.
No,
either.
The game doesn't matter. And so when you're talking about load management, when you're talking about resting, all of this is eyeing so that he has fresh legs for when? The end of the season and making your run towards the postseason. I do not want to see a meaningless championship game that those two have to be involved in.
No, and I think you use that word meaningless, and I think that's a good word for it, because at the end of the day, like, the Cup title does kind of feel meaningless, really, because, like I said, what do you get if you win? You have to get jump around, yay, shout out House of Pain, and say that you won something. Yeah, again, they'll probably sell T-shirts for it. So if you want to get a T-shirt that says NBA Cup champs, you can get that. You get to see your favorite basketball player get a little bit richer. Okay, if that does something for you. But outside of that, I mean, what are you getting? Like, how is the Lakers franchise any better, any richer, any more, amazing with that NBA Cup win last year? No one's talking about the NBA Cup titles when it comes to the Lakers. That's not what the Lakers do. So it's how do you make that NBA Cup title more spicy? How do you make it something that you absolutely want to have? And my thought for that, Dan, if you win the NBA Cup, you get an automatic top 6 seed in the playoffs. That's how I think you incentivize it. It gets you out of that play-in game. You get maybe you make it all the way top 4 seed so you can get them a home series. Really add some incentive to it. But I think the winner of the NBA Cup gets a top 6 seed no matter what, and there you go. That's how you make the NBA Cup have a little bit more meaning.
Here's the issue with that, and I point towards the Eastern Conference, where I want to say the 3rd seed right now is a sub-500 team. If you were to do that and somebody's to take the pipe and is not very good in the latter part of the season and is 15
that
games
would be
under
ugly.
500.
You're true. Yeah, that's.
And I think the Eastern Conference.
How about this addendum then? So you get an automatic top 6 seed, but you got to have a record above 500.
Well, the more we fine tune this thing, how about we just get rid of it altogether?
Well, yeah, that's kind of what it ends up coming down to. Is like, what are we doing then at this point? It's just we're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Like, it gets to a point where, okay, if we're not going to do that, then it just becomes a pointless in-season thing with an extra game that doesn't even matter. And then you're just playing for pride, which, hey, if pride is all you need to get juiced up about the NBA Cup, more power to you. It's just not enough for me. So it's cool that the Warriors won last night on the fancy floor. By the way, have you seen all the other floors that the NBA teams are doing?
Did you see the Celtics green?
The Celtics green. Some of them are obviously better than others. The ones I don't like are the ones that are like the blood red or the bright yellow. Like, that's just a little much.
Celtics green was pretty bad, man. Celtics green was like they were playing in a video game. It was so weird.
Yeah, I was watching the Knicks Sixers the other night, and that one looked like they were playing in a swimming pool because with the blue court there. So the different color courts, some of them work. I think the gray patterns definitely work.
By the way, Cat double headbutt there, my man Jersey Ken. I know he's a Knicks guy. Double headbutt to, I think he took out Joel Embiid. And there was another 76 that he got in that headbutt.
Kelly Oubre.
Kelly Oubre.
It's a 2-for-1.
Yeah. Warrior legend
Loved
Kelly Oubre.
Loved every minute of it.
Oh, man, the amount of shows that guy used to drive. Kelly Oubre.
Still the best dressed guy in the NBA. Him or Westbrook.
Oh, yeah, I'll give that one.
So, yeah, I think the NBA Cup, in all honesty, I think that what it boils down to, I think the last thing you want to see when your 2 best stars are on the wrong side of 30, 35, that you don't want to play another high-intensity basketball game. Every single minute, every second, let alone every game counts when it comes to load management and having these guys at the optimal level at the most important part of the season, that being the postseason for the Golden State Warriors. But the Warriors do come up winners in what was just really an ugly game in the latter part.
Really quick, Dan, before we move on, I mentioned my 6-seed plan. Last year, just going off last year's standings, the Pacers, who won the NBA Cup, and the Suns were your 6th seed. The Pacers had a 573 winning percentage, and the Suns had a 598 winning percentage. So, if you have the mandate, you keep your record above 500, you get an automatic 6th seed. I think that it's a little bit of legit there. I mean, if because that's the difference from taking you out of, maybe that 9-10 game into that 6th seed. So I think that's how you can maybe incentivize it.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, and sort of as it relates to the NBA right now. And there's a lot of talk about, as I mentioned, the East, which is going to have, well, if the season were to end today, I don't know how this is going to play out towards the end of the year, but you got teams like Atlanta, Charlotte, for crying out loud, is in that hunt. A lot of sub-500 teams that are going to get into the postseason. Not only get into the postseason, but get in as high seeds. Where are you at just a 1-16 and the hell with the conferences?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to go there yet. I mean, even last year, Dan, you had 8 teams in the Eastern Conference finish with seasons with records above 500. In the Western Conference, you had 11 teams finish with a record of 500 or better. The Rockets at 41-41, bringing up the rear there. They were on the outside looking in of the play-in game bracket there. So as far as the 1-16, just mass seeding there, it's probably going to be happening at some point. It's just, remember when divisions mattered in the NBA? No one cares about divisions anymore. You just go right to the conference standings now. I do think it's only a matter of time before they just say to hell with the conferences and just go 1-16. I don't think I'm ready to go there yet, but if admit that it's probably.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the logistics of travel, right?
Well, I assume, if you do away with conferences, I mean, obviously you're playing some teams less, so you probably won't be playing the Lakers 4 times a year. You'll probably have to be playing, Eastern Conference teams a little bit more, or maybe you do just keep the, the home and homes there. Maybe you have to change the schedule up a little bit as well, too. I doubt the NBA would actually reduce games, though, so there would be some logistical hurdles they would have to clear.
You're not in favor of the baseball series. I think that's gross.
No, I mean, it was weird last week when we had the back-to-backs against the Pelicans.
Yeah.
I don't like this. I remember Steve Kerr said this a few years ago during the, the 2021 season that started at Christmas. And there was a lot of baseball series during that season because of COVID travels and stuff like that. They kind of wanted to pack as many games into, as possible. And Kurt had a great line. He kind of talked about how he didn't like it because when NBA teams come to town, it's a chance to see other stars.
Yeah.
So you have a team like, I'll just use the Pelicans as an example since they were just here. They come to town, and if, let's just say Zion was hurt for whatever reason, those are your 2 Pelicans games. They're not going to come back for the rest of the season, and because Zion was out that week, or it could be just Zion had a cold that week. You don't get to see Zion play at all that year.
Wait.
So
Said,
I'm using this as an example.
Yeah. No, I find it amazing that Zion was hurt. Seriously?
I know. It's. I mean, this could be applicable to any
sure.
anything. What if it's a 2-game set against the Lakers and LeBron James isn't active that night or that week? So now that's, if you're trying to see Steph and LeBron face off at Chase Center, you don't get to see that anymore because all the games were packed into 1 week, and that's something that Kerr brought up that year, and that made a lot of sense. You want to see other guys around the league. You want to see these other superstars. And the baseball series does kind of put you at risk of not being able to get that.
And what's the one team that has not had the benefit or the luxury of playing in a baseball, quote unquote, baseball series? In other words, traveling to, say, Memphis and staying there for 2 days, that being the Golden State Warriors. Have never, ever been able to do that. And that's because everybody wants to see Steph. He's got to move on to the next city. All right, we're going to open up the phone lines early, 888-957-9570. That's 888-957-9570. Let's start things out in Bayview. Just give me Jimmy wants to talk about the NBA Cup. What's up, Jim?
Hey, guys. Morning this Saturday. Thanks for taking my call. The NBA Cup, as you guys were saying, has no relevance towards what's happening later in the season. And I think, generally a playoff team is going to win the Cup. If they said the winner of the NBA Cup would move up 1 seed, there would be some motivation for that, extra game you're playing. And I don't like the gray courts because it kind of messes with the TV. It looks like the TV, the contrast is messed up. And I think the Warriors, they won a game where they had 19 turnovers. So generally the Warriors' magic numbers like 13. They can win with 14, but above that, generally their chances go down of losing. So the Warriors showed some resilience. What do you guys think?
Thanks, Jimmy. You know what? About last night's game, you make a good point. The Warriors didn't play well. And you could see that the air was clearly out of the room after all the emotion that was spent on Tuesday night in the return of Klay Thompson. And this is the sign of a good team, Sam. To me, this was more of a barometer and a measuring stick than even that nationally televised game against Boston, even that playoff-esque game against Klay Thompson and the Dallas Cowboys. When you take on a Memphis team and you're not emotionally ready to go, which is understandable, you're not playing at your very best. Steph Curry shot it 27 times against Dallas. He put it up 9 times last night. Off game, I think, for Jonathan Kuminga, Wiggins. Jimmy talked about the turnovers, and yet that game was never in doubt, I don't think, from the outset. To me, that's a statement that you're now clearly part of the top tier of the NBA, that when you're not playing at your best, that you still can dominate, which is, I would call Memphis a good team. They were over 500.
Oh, yeah, I think they're going to be a very good team this year. Very big team, very strong team, and they didn't have Ja last night.
And the Warriors, that game, maybe this is just a personal thought, but was never hanging in the balance. There was never a question from the outset. And that, to me, is a sign of a good team. When you don't, and I don't want to use the term mail it in, but you're not at your very best. But again, when you buy in defensively and the defense is there every night, you can win ugly. And you don't necessarily need Steph to go off. You don't need Draymond to be Draymond, although we'll get into Draymond and his performance last night and getting tossed yet again. And you don't need a big performance from anybody. But again, it's the collective and it's the defense, and it gets you through a game like that of Memphis against a good team. To me, again, that was another indicator that this team is for real.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Last year's team probably does not win that game last night. I mean, there's a lot of games you could point out on the Warriors' schedule so far this year that last year's team probably does not come out and win. I'd point at that Houston game, what was it, 2 weeks ago now, where they had that 31-point lead. They fell apart in the fourth quarter, and they still held on to win in overtime. They probably don't win that. That Celtics game a couple weeks ago, they got off to a horrible start, but the defense was holding the Celtics in check to kind of, give the offense a chance to get back into the game. I'll be honest, and watching that game when the Celtics went up, I think it was like 14-2 or something to start that game. I'm looking at the way they were playing defense on the Celtics, like, oh, yeah, they're going to be able to figure this out. Like, the shot's going to start to fall for the Warriors, and the defense going to lock the Celtics down. Even against the win against OKC, when Chet goes down, I mean, they got some help there, but I don't know if they win that game last year. And then to your point, as last night's game, they had a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter that almost evaporated. We saw those leads evaporate all the time last year with this team, and they're not letting that happen this year. So you do see a stronger team mentally, a much, I think, more joyful team this year. And it's almost like you've got like a fresh start for this team after how the last two seasons have gone, where there's just a lot of internal strife and frustration behind the scenes that I believe absolutely was wearing down on the day-to-day product. You don't have that this year. You have a team that's just loose, having fun, and they were able to hold on. And again, the depth absolutely helps. Last night, the Buddy Hield revolution keeps going. 7 of 15 shooting, 4 of 8 from 3, 18 points overall. He's just been an absolute revelation for this team. But yeah, last night, that was the sign of a team that is emotionally composed right now. And they easily could have had an emotional letdown after that game on Tuesday night against Klay Thompson and the Mavericks.
Yeah, you brought up last year. Remember the 41 clutch games? Nobody played in more closer games than that of the Golden State Warriors.
They seem to blow almost all of them.
Exactly. And I think a lot of that was because of defense or the lack thereof. We continue with the phone calls, 888-957-9570, off to San Francisco, and say hello to Gloria, who joins us this morning. Hey, Gloria.
That's my dog's name.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I think I'm a proponent of the in-play cup. I want some incentive added to the tournament. I like the idea that you guys were talking about the winner of the cup. They can move up in a seed. They don't have to go into the play-in game. I like that. I like that idea. And however we can make that idea become a reality. I know you guys were saying, well, the East wouldn't benefit. Well, if you're over 500, then, let's find a way to make that happen to where the winner wouldn't have to be play into the play-in game.
Yeah. I'm
also a proponent of how the courts look. Aesthetically, it's eye-popping. It makes me think something is happening. There's so many games throughout a year in basketball. This incentive added to the Players' Cup make these otherwise meaningless games. They make them add potential to it being something special. Like we really got to bring our A game.
Gloria, have you had a chance to look around? Have you had a chance to look at the other courts around the league the teams are using?
Yeah, now I wasn't a big fan of Houston's. I know that's a whole lot of red.
Yeah.
But
some of the colors just work better. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I like Boston. I like that metallic green. It really looked, I know, kind of like video game-ish, but I think the players, they buy in a little bit. I know that, older stars, they may not benefit from it as much because we're trying to spare their limbs and, not overtax them. But it makes the Warriors team, all their supporting cast who are younger, it makes them play harder and makes the team as a whole more cohesive.
Thank you, Gloria. You know,
there's points there.
There's somebody in Madison Avenue right now with the NBA saying, Gloria, I want more of you. Because that's exactly what they were thinking about when they decided to change the courts. They're like, let's just make this different so then people see a game, they'll know
something's different.
Something's up. And Gloria she's part of that consumer base. Yep. So it works. If Gloria is any sort of an indicator. All right, we got to get to a break. Austin, I need you to hang on because we're not going to do that to you. We don't want to put you up against the clock because we know you come strong every Saturday. So we're going to give you a full run on the other side. When we come back, we continue with Warriors this week. It's Sam Lemon, it's Jersey Ken back producing once again, and Dan Avone. Much more right after this.
Technical foul was on Steve Kerr, the head coach. And Draymond just got ejected. And so they're going to walk down, shoot another free throw.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Sam Lubman, Jersey Ken, Dan DeVoe, maybe the most uneventful, the least talked about technical and being thrown out of a game for one Draymond Green in some time, maybe ever.
Dan, there used to be a time where if Draymond Green got thrown out of a basketball game, we knew, we're good on content for the next day, maybe the next 2 days. I'll always remember in my earlier days at this station during that 2021 season, Draymond Green, I'm sure a lot of Warrior fans remember this, when he got thrown out of the end of that Charlotte game with about 8 seconds left in Charlotte. And then I think
they lost.
And then
Beal
hit the game winner right after that. And I remember I came in, I did Warriors This Week the next day. It was with JD and Nick Friedel at the time. And I kid you not, Dan, from 9:01 to our hard out at 11:55, those phone lines were 100% packed. It was all the calls were, I'm so tired of Draymond, or guys, you got to remember Draymond does this. It was 3 hours of that. And here we are again, a little bit of a different circumstance. The Warriors did win, but Draymond getting kicked out of a game, I feel like part of it, maybe we're just desensitized to it. Part of it is it just seems like people aren't as angry about it.
You know why, Sammy? Winning cures all.
It really does.
But I do want to talk about
magic deodorizer.
We're going to get into Draymond Green because I do find it interesting, and he continues to be somebody that divides the room, and I just find him so fascinating as a player, as a human being. We're going to do a lot more of that when it comes to Draymond and the Warriors' ugly win over Memphis last night to improve to 10-2 as we welcome you back into Warriors This Week. Once again to the phone lines, 888-957-9570. Without further ado, let's bring him in. San Jose, the location. Say hello to Austin. What's up, man?
Happy Saturday, guys. Sam and Dan, a great show already. Listen,
thank you, Austin.
A couple things. I'm going to go in a little different direction, guys. And you know, Dan, I always like to throw a little bit something different into the equation. Number one, I like the tournament. I like the tournament, even though you say older guys. Listen, they're basketball players. I remember Thompson's father was asked about guys playing and resting guys, and I think it was Thompson's dad or said, hey, you know what? These guys are basketball players. That's what they do. So yeah, guys get hurt. Guys, things happen, but at the end of the day, man, that's what they do. So these guys are smart enough to pace themselves anyway, Dan. I don't think you have to worry about Steph and Dre and those guys pacing themselves. These guys are pros. They know what to do. So, yeah, let's bring the tournament. Anything to liven up the NBA, I think we need. I have the league pass, so I can watch a lot of games in the evening. And I think one thing the NBA needs to be concerned about is maybe a little bit of overexposure, believe it or not. I think there's a lot of games to watch. If you try to scroll between games, you can only watch a couple games at a time. So I wonder out loud if they're a little bit overexposed. I think the NBA tournament gives them sort of a collegiate kind of environment, right? People are almost watching a college type format, which you could argue is good and bad. So that's something that I think you guys can talk about. But the other thing is regarding the stars, Dan. The NBA's got a problem right now. They don't have – the problem is too many guys are hurt. If I go to a game like last night where they were in town, OKC was – I want to see Ja Morant. I don't want to see guys that aren't playing. The way Dallas game was so good was everybody played when Dallas was here, and that's kind of rare nowadays where all the stars show up. The pro game for me is different, Dan. I can go watch college basketball. If I want to go see San Jose State or Santa Clara, I can go watch guys, play and hustle, play hard. When I go see a pro game, I go to see the skill level. I want to see the best of the best. I don't want to see guys hurt. I want to pay my money. I want everybody on both sides to be there. I don't want the Warriors to win because somebody on the other side was hurt. No. Those tickets are too expensive. I want to see the best guys on the court. So for me, I get a little disappointed when I watch a game and all the guys aren't there, if that makes sense. The other night when you watch Kyrie's skill level, things he can do that nobody else can do, effortlessly going to the basket. I mean, you saw even Klay Thompson. There was one series where Moses Moody came down the court. He had a wide-open shot. He was indecisive. What did they do? He missed the shot. Dallas threw the ball back down the court, and Klay didn't even hesitate and shot a three. That reminds you of how great the really good guys are versus the guys that we just watch run up and down the court every day. So for me, it's a difference between watching a team play hard and win and a team that has a high skill level, if that makes sense, guys. I'll keep listening. Thanks.
I hear you. I want to let's what he said about the NBA Cup in terms of just like not worrying about the minutes. I will say this, Dan. Right now, again, we're only 12 games into the season, but Draymond Green is averaging about 27 minutes per game right now. It's about what he got last year. His career average is about 28 minutes a game, so his minutes per game is down a little bit. But Steph Curry, currently through 9 games, Dan, is averaging only 28 minutes a game right now. The last time that Steph played a full season, I'm going to take away that 5-game season where he injured his hand. But the last time Steph played a full season and averaged less than 30 minutes, go all the way back to the 2011-2012 season. He didn't even play he wasn't even a full-time player. Well, he was a full-time player, but he missed a large chunk of that season because of an ankle injury. That's how far back he had to go to find when Steph was averaging under 30 minutes a game. Even so far this season, I think last night was, either the third or fourth time Steph has sat out the fourth quarter so far this year. Remember, it used to happen a lot back in the day. Steph's averaging about 6 minutes per game in the fourth quarter. That's down from 7.6 minutes last year, 7.7 minutes the year prior, and 8.3 minutes per fourth quarter in that 21-22 championship season. So Steph's playing a little bit less this year, which you like to see. Draymond's getting a little less time on his legs this year, which you like to see. So far in the early going, the Warriors' depth is keeping their biggest stars' legs a little bit fresher than they have been in years past.
Oh, no, that's a huge part of it. Not only that, but the injuries, right? DeAnthony Melton goes down if this is any other year, because I think Steve Kerr intimated last week where he said, I finally have my starting lineup. Remember the beginning of the season? Aside from Steph and Draymond, it was sort of this running joke. If you wanted content, the beginning of the year, you just say, let's play. Who's going to be the starting 5 for the Golden State Warriors in the 24-25
I think
campaign?
they had a stretch of 6 games with 6 different starting lineups, and it's usually only 1 or 2 differences.
And now he felt so comfortable with DeAnthony Melton now at the number 2. And obviously he's got Wiggins, Trace Jackson-Davis, and Draymond Green as your front line, and Steph at the 1. And you got Jonathan Kuminga, who's very productive now, and it seems as though he's found his slot coming off the bench. And so it all worked. And then all of a sudden, DeAnthony Melton goes down. Now, if this is any other year, you would say, oh no, that's not good. What are we going to do? You'd spend some time talking about it. But because, again, to your point, because of the depth, not only can you rest guys, but it's the proverbial next man up. DeAnthony Melton's down. That only means that Lindy Waters gets some run. That only means that the next guy in line just moves a step forward.
Yep.
And because you have so many players, whether it's Slow-Mo, whether it's Moses Moody, or it's Kuminga, or it's Podziemski, or it's GP2, the list goes on, you never want injuries. But you can afford to lose a DeAnthony Melton. You can afford to lose a Lindy Waters. And you can still be a productive team. And that's what depth provides. But I think to Austin's point, that it is sort of fascinating in this day and age, in basketball in 2024, where you have guys now that invest in their bodies like they have never done before, where you have nutritionists now who are on the payroll. These guys now, they have dietitians. They work out. You talk about having a gym in your pad. These guys have their personal trainers. There has never been a point in the NBA throughout its entirety where players now are more focused in investing on their bodies and taking care of themselves. Compare that to like the 80s or the 70s or the 90s, where dudes would just roll out of bed after, being on a bender
hungover,
the night before and then drop in 25 and then do their thing. Why is it then that we're seeing the rash of injuries and guys are getting injured now more than ever before?
Well, I think part of it is, guys are faster and stronger than they've ever been before. The level of play is harder than it's ever been before. The pace of play is faster than it's ever been before. So you're putting far more miles on your legs at a far greater intensity than you have been in the past. And then on top of that is just, we think the Warriors are deep. This league is deep. They may not be deep in terms of just like, superstars. I mean, there are a lot of superstars, obviously, but the next level of players, the second tier players, the role players, the guys behind the role players, like there's a lot of talent in the league this year. You're not really going against, what was it the term JJ Redick had, plumbers and electricians that Wilt Chamberlain was playing against? Like you got legitimate
Bob
NBA
Cousy
players.
threw under the bus.
Yeah, those are JJ's words, not mine. But you've got so many, just the talent level, it just goes so far deep in this league these days that you're always playing against a guy who can run you. So when you kind of combine all of that together over the course of an 82 game season, yeah, I think you're going to see a lot more wear and tear. And bodies, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Ligaments can only hold so much. Ligaments don't get bigger. And so you got these dudes like, I'll watch like Jaren Jackson Jr. Watching that dude is a massive human being. I remember last year after one of the Grizzlies games, I went and I sat in on Taylor Jenkins's post-game presser just because I'm curious what the other coach has to say. And JJJ, he sits down right next to me because he was going to go after coach. And I just look over and this dude's just like an absolute behemoth of a human being. But he doesn't really look like it on TV because he's not like, like fat or anything like that. He's like just built large, like a very large build. That's a lot of man for those ligaments to have to carry around. And so it's just, when you bring all that together, yeah, I can kind of see how some guys' bodies start to break down a little bit more than others.
They have to be the biggest team in the NBA with Aldama, with Jaren Jackson,
Zach Edey. Yeah.
Zach Edey.
Cavs, pretty big team too.
The Cavs are big, but they're slim and they're athletic. When I think of Mobley and I think of Allen, I think of guys that are athletes that can get out and shoot threes. When I think of Memphis, I think dudes are just like,
well, they've always kind of had that.
WWE-esque.
Yeah, they've always had like back when Zach Randolph was there, those big boy teams
Steven
as well.
Adams, sure.
Yeah, Jones Valanciunas
Brandon
for a minute.
Clark's another guy.
They have an identity in Memphis. They love those big bruiser dudes.
Here's why I think that you're seeing the number of injuries. And Steve Kerr talked about this, and he echoed my sentiment, is that the game has never been played like this before. And I know Charles Barkley and some of those bozos from the 90s will say, oh, these little guys, man, you don't know what it was like when we played. The game was so much better. Miss me with that, man. This game now is on such a different level in terms of the requirements for an athlete to play and to get run in the NBA. Go pop in a tape from when Charles Barkley was playing. You cross half court, you would throw it into somebody in the post because that's where the game was played, whether it was David Robinson or Olajuwon or Patrick Ewing, and then, they double team and they rotate out of that. But everybody was standing around in the key. Like, you cross the timeline now, you cross the logo, and you got to get out and extend on guys. You got to run guys off the three-point line. You got guys now that just need a crease to get off a three, a sidestep three. So you've got to be out defensively. You've got to get up and down the floor. You can't hide anymore. There are no big fellas that are just going to lumber back into the picture after, the offense is already set and you're going through a play. No, transitional defense is a real thing. I think the wear and tear on these guys and the requirements to be an NBA basketball player at that skill level puts so much pressure on, as you talked about before, the joints, the ligaments, whatever. Because, again, the prerequisite to be good and to defend these guys at that level requires so much physically that I think is why you're seeing so many guys go down. The game has never, ever been played at this level.
So much more movement these days. I mean, how many miles does Steph Curry run a game? Now, imagine you're the guy who has to, stay on that guy. Like, you remember the 2015 finals. I mean, he ran Matthew Dellavedova right into the emergency room. That's, how hard it is. So, yeah, it's so much easier to build up wear and tear these days because, guys are stronger. Guys are faster. Guys are defending you harder. Guys are banging into you harder. Like, I don't know if TV always captures it, but the NBA game is an incredibly physical game. Guys getting knocked around all over the place, getting elbows to the face, to the chest, knees hitting you here and there. Like, again, it's just, and then you're doing this for 6 months out of the year, 82 games. Again, for a long time, these injuries are going to build up, especially if you're on one of the bigger guys. I mean, Joel Embiid, that guy's always injured, but that's a lot of body that guy has to carry around. That's why he's having all those foot injuries early on in his career.
Yeah, I was going to chime in here real quick, guys. And think about the big men that are much more athletic nowadays and can shoot outside of the perimeter. I mean, you just said Joel Embiid is one of those guys, even though he's not playing well right now. But Jokic, I mean, the guy's a triple-double machine. You know, he's one of the best passers in the league. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns. You got to worry about big men shooting outside and sidestepping you.
Wemby.
Like, right. And it's just going to get even more like ridiculous when it comes down.
Dan, you're around to see, you know, these guys when they played back in the 80s and 90s. I mean, did you ever see big men shooting threes like this back in the day?
Which lends me to, and I know they do this at the bar, and why not just dig it up right now? Shaquille O'Neal. You know where I'm going with this, right? And I'm one of those guys that just be the best for your era. Like when people say, oh, could Babe Ruth hit today's pitching? Who the hell cares? Babe Ruth played in the 20s. He was the best at his sport. Leave it alone. Shaquille O'Neal, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest to ever do it. But if Shaquille O'Neal, to Jersey Ken's point, if he was in today's game, is he the same impactful basketball player? Because, again, when you talk about the Joker has a lot of Shaquille O'Neal. Because he's the one guy who can throw around his girth and be big and get to his spot in the paint. But again, as Jersey Ken points out, he can also step you outside and shoot a three and give you a feathery touch from the mid-range and also can pass like nobody else. He might be the first. It's never happened. He might be the first guy we're looking at who's going to be a 4-time MVP. But I'm just curious, getting back to Shaq, could Shaq play in today's game?
I think he's skilled enough, he's athletic enough, he's big enough that you would definitely be a presence down low. Without the shooting, it would be tough. But what I'll be very curious to see is how he keeps up with the pace.
Okay, but if
teams are running so much more these days. Like, I don't know how effective he would be having to kind of keep up with the high paces, because the NBA game in the 90s was very slow paced.
Half court.
Yeah, it was. I think the fastest paced team in the end of the 90s, they were like 95 possessions a game or something like that, was like fast paced back in, the late 90s. Nowadays, like, the slowest teams are doing like 105, 110 possessions a game. So it's just a much faster game. And so I'd be kind of curious, Shaq having to, huff and puff up and down that court. Would he be effective? Absolutely. How much? That's where I think the question comes in.
Okay, let me take you back in the day in the NBA Finals in 2016. And so Andrew Bogut, who was part of the Golden State Warriors, and he was an instrumental part of their success. And what did the Cavaliers do? And it was sort of the way the NBA was headed. They went small and nullified Andrew Bogut, where he wasn't even a factor in the finals because they had to take him off the floor. If I go small, which is what teams like to play 5 out now, if I go small, what's Shaquille O'Neal going to do? Is Shaquille O'Neal going to extend and chase somebody off the line?
Nope.
Is Shaquille O'Neal going to get outside and watch Evan Mobley from 30 feet from the hoop?
No.
Is he going to get outside and extend on Wembanyama, who wants to take you off the bounce? What is it Shaquille O'Neal is going to do in today's game when I go 5 small?
I think 90s Shaquille O'Neal, like Magic Shaquille O'Neal, could probably do it. But then he's always said, I never took care of myself the way I should have. Like if he had the work ethic, like he said, like Kobe, he goes, I probably would have been a different player. But I think you're right. The Lakers Shaquille O'Neal, he was just a big dude. Mm-hmm. He couldn't move side to side or front to back the way these guys can do it now. But I think Magic Shaq, he was a little more athletic, a little more fit, could probably run up and down, but he would have to take care of himself.
And then again,
develop a shot too.
You think about spacing, right? Like we always talk about, you can play Zach Edey to a certain degree, but it's about spacing because, where are you going to stick Shaq? Like he's going to be in one spot, and you know where that spot's going to be. I think it's fascinating as to where the game is at right now. But again, it's so nonsensical because he doesn't play today. And when he did play, he was the best to do it, and we should just leave it at that. But for whatever reason, we like to go there.
Completely different eras. That's why I think it's just I look at the pace. I always just come back to the pace and just how much faster the game has gotten. Those guys played in a much slower NBA that I think was just better for their skill sets. I mean, there's a reason why there are no centers out there today that are close to the size of Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, Zach Edey is one of the bigger dudes out there, at 7'3",
the big maple.
300 pounds. They have him listed at 299, but that just feels like they're doing him a solid to not put a 3 there on that weight. But he does not look like a 300-pound dude. Like, he is big, he is long, and he can move. That does not look like how a 300-pound man should look. But yet, the definition of what a 300-pound man is in the NBA is very different than what it was, 25 years ago.
Speaking of 25 years ago and Shaquille O'Neal in the center position and how it's changed over the years, did you happen to watch the ESPN game prior to that of the Golden State Warriors in Memphis? It was San Antonio and the Lakers.
I did. I had it. Yeah, I'm one of those guys. I'm doing stuff around the house while I got the game on in the background. So, I did have it on for a little bit. I saw a little. I mean, I love watching Wemby. He is.
Well, that's my point. Wemby can do a lot, but he has no idea how to post up. They couldn't even get him the ball in the post. He was getting rooted out by guys half his size. I mean, he had no idea. Austin Reeves was taking him out of the paint. And he just does not have any idea how to play with his back.
20 years old right now?
No, he's going to be remarkable.
Yeah, it's
but
still a long way to go. But
some interior. He's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
He's a guy who just wants to take you off the balance and cross you up or step out and shoot a 3, which is good. But you're also 7'5" or 7'4". I don't know, but like
it's just you count on your height to get those rebounds. He's gonna have to fill out his body a little bit. I mean, remember when Anthony Davis first came into the league and he kind of just looked like a really tall Urkel, and now he's just this absolute behemoth of a man.
He always had big shoulders.
Well, he was always big, but he's really filled out a lot since he first came into the league. I mean, he was very lanky and gangly kind of back when he was at Kentucky. And since then, he's gotten far more filled out. The shoulder's gotten a little bit more broader, a lot more solid there. So I think when Wemby, once you start putting a little bit more size on him, a little bit more weight, a little bit more durability there, he's going to become an absolute just terror of a player.
He's having somewhat of a sophomore slump because the expectations, and I think the bar was so high for him this year. But he does have to play in the paint at some point. Somebody's just got to tell him, look, I know you like to be outside, and I know you can shoot it, and it's remarkable because we've never seen a guy do what it is that you do with the handle and everything. But we also, as long as this game is about a hoop that's 10 feet from the ground, and the object is to put the ball in the hoop, and you're this big, we need you to rim protect a little bit, and we need you to muck it up a little bit.
Yeah, not everyone can just shoot threes.
And look at Evan Mobley and the Joker. They're two guys. The reason why Cleveland, I think, is legit is that there's balance, is that you have an interior game. But again, to Ken's point, is that you have to be able to do both. Like the Joker, who is, to me, the quintessential center of today's game, because he can go outside and he can shoot a 3, and he can beat you in so many different ways. And then he'll take advantage of you if he feels as though he has the height advantage, and he'll get to his spots on the interior. Right now, Wembanyama, like a lot of foreign players, like a lot of European players, wants to play facing the hoop. And at some point, just get down, stick your narrow butt on the dots, take a lob pass from Chris Paul, and be comfortable with a jump hook or a little turnaround Jimmy from 6 feet. Just have that be part of your bag. And he can't even establish himself. He can't even hold ground down there. And I saw successive possessions where they tried to. And the other thing is, here's another lost art, the entry pass into the post. It sounds really easy, right? You just stick your hand up if you're a guy who's 7'6", you give him a target, and you're like, all right, let me throw it into him. And watching Devin Vassell or whomever, the Kelvin Johnsons of the world, just trying to throw an entry pass into the post, they had no idea how to do it. They don't know what
the basic fundamentals.
It really is. It's sort of those fundamentals, as we talk about Shaq and basketball in the 1990s, have really been lost in a lot of players.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a player like that that's going to post up, well, then you got to get back to basketball 101. All right. I do want to talk about basketball today and one Draymond Green. I know you have something to say. I clearly have something to say. Jersey Ken, you want to chime in on Draymond Green? I'm sure he does. We'll do all that and much more when we continue on Warriors This Week right after this.
Podziemski behind the screen, now dribbles in, stops, finds Draymond, top side, another triple. Yes! Back-to-back threes for Draymond, 66-54 is the score.
Ooh, we might get another one up.
Yeah, I think the lights be a little more green there for number 23.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. That was Draymond Green last night as the Warriors come up winners over the Memphis Grizzlies in a forgettable fourth quarter. This game was pretty much in hand throughout, even though the Memphis Grizzlies, I think, very conscientious about the point differential and the in-season tournament, or the Emirates NBA Cup, as it's officially known, making this mad dash. But it was brutal at times in that fourth quarter, but the Warriors hang on for the victory, and more importantly, at the end of the day, improved to 10-2 on the season. And Draymond Green continues to shoot it at a high clip from three-point territory. He's still over 50%, I want to say. And the Warriors do it a different way. Last night, again, it was the defense, and it was a lethargic performance, I think, for the most part, from your go-to stars, namely Steph Curry. I think it was a subpar performance for Andrew Wiggins, as well as Jonathan Kuminga, who's been playing so well off the bench. But Buddy Hield was Buddy Hield, and he was good again. And the Warriors continue to roll along. And now, listen, man, it's getting to the point where this is becoming real. I do want to continue to talk about Draymond Green. And Draymond Green, once again, getting the technical fouls last night and tossed from yet another basketball game. First of all, Sammy, where are you at with Draymond? I know you intimated in the previous break that, as long as his team continues to win, it sort of diffuses the eyesore at times, that being Draymond Green. But Draymond, first of all, getting kicked from last night's game, and sort of his overall play this year compared to, of course, the turbulence we went through at this juncture a year ago with Draymond.
Yeah, last year when he said it was the most important season of his career, and he ended up missing, a third of that season. But Dan, you talk about it. The first thing that jumps out to me this year, it's the three-point shooting. I think it's the fourth game in a row that he's had multiple threes, which I think ties a career high. Last night for Draymond, 5-11 shooting, 3 of 7 from 3. 8 rebounds, 13 points. He was a +6 overall, 7 assists. He's just such complete stat sheets here that he's filling out. And so it's the Warriors, I think they're 50. Let me make sure I have this number right here. 55-7 when Draymond hits 3 or more threes in his career. He's feeling the three-point shot right now. He's shooting 45% from three-point right now, which would be far and away the best he's ever done in his career. He shot 39% from 3 last year, so he was better from 3 last year, but he was only taking about 2 threes per game last year. Taking about 3 threes per game this year, 3.5 officially according to Basketball Reference. Yeah, go back to the 2017-18 season to find a time when Draymond was cranking up the 3 at that rate. So he is rediscovering his stroke. He is rediscovering that three-point stroke. And when Draymond is locked in on offense, the Warriors are just such a different team. And that's what I'm really liking from Draymond Green this year. Getting ejected last night, you're honestly able to look, you're looking the other way on it this time because, for one, I thought it was an incredibly soft tech that he got at the end. I believe he wanted a travel call to be called on Jalen Wells when he ran into Moses Moody. Moody got called for the blocking foul. Draymond immediately turned to the official. I don't know if it was Andy Nagy that he was yelling at. It was either Brian Forte or Andy Nagy. I couldn't catch which one it was. And he just yelled, "Yo, travel!" Immediately gets the tech there. And then about a minute later, he gets the second tech. Seemed to mouth some sort of naughty word that starts with an F at the ref. And don't mean to rhyme there, and gets tossed there. Steve Kerr was laying into the refs last night, too, at the end of that game. So there was definitely emotions on both of those guys there. I just seemed like refs getting a little too trigger happy with the tease, though, last night.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because a year ago, remember the refs after the All-Star game were letting them play? And I really enjoyed that. It was not disruptive. It was fluid. You could watch basketball, and it was entertaining. They were getting up and down the floor. You weren't stopping because of a whistle every 10 seconds. And then, I think that there were some that felt as though even Steve Kerr chimed in that you know what, it was getting a little out of hand. So it looked as though in the beginning part of this season that they had reached a happy medium, that they weren't over officiating, and then they weren't just simply swallowing the whistle and letting him, have complete run and chaos out there, that there was just this, it was a tight ship. Last night, I think, got away from them. And the reason why I know there was a lot of talk of this in the postgame as to what it is that Draymond said, why did he get tossed? I don't think it's necessarily what it is that he did in terms of the incident per se, or I don't think that it's isolated as to what exactly did he say or what is it that he did that falls under the heading of him being removed and ejected from a basketball game. I think when it comes to Draymond, especially last night, and you see this if you watch enough Draymond Green and Warrior basketball, it's the accumulative effect, is that he barks and he whines and he's in ref's face for 4 quarters. And I think towards the latter part of the game, the refs are just, that's enough, brother. I'm going to run you.
Well, he's got a reputation, and the refs know that. He knows that. And reputation absolutely comes into play when the refs are dealing with him. I mean, his reputation was a big reason why he was suspended indefinitely last year. Now, choking out Rudy Gobert and smacking Yusuf Nurkic in the face, yes, that's going to be a big part of it. But when it's Draymond Green doing those things, yeah, the league's going to drop the hammer a little bit harder on him because he has that history. That's who he has become. And last year, it just seemed like far too often he would let the emotions of the moment dictate his actions, much to the detriment of the Warriors. This year, though, last night aside, there's been times where he's barking at the refs. There's times where he's barking at other guys, but he backs off before it hits that point of no return.
Yeah, he walks right to the razor's edge.
Yeah, he's better, I think, at towing that line, whereas last year he would just, skip across it thinking that everything was going to be okay. It just seems like he's got a different mindset this year in terms of just, he knows that he screwed up last year. He knows that he left a very important season, as he said, on the table. This year, though, it's just something different. Something different about the attitude, something different about just how he's playing out there. The offensive force that he is, that, when he is dialed in on offense, the difference it makes, it's crazy to say this. I was crushing Draymond before this season started, saying that, because we all know the Warriors go as Draymond Green goes. Steph Curry's the face, and he's the superstar, and he's the guy who's most important, blah, blah, blah. But Draymond, he is the heart and soul of the Warriors. He has always been the guy who, when he's going, the Warriors are going. And maybe it just, the message dawned on him, maybe the way that these last 2 seasons played out, something clicked. And right now, so far, 12 games into this season, it's crazy to say this, but I think we start believing in Draymond Green again, which is wild to say after the last 2-3 seasons.
I've always believed in Draymond Green, but I cannot buy in that he's changed or he's different. I can't.
Well, I'm not going to say these a full 180 change, but but to say this is the same Draymond as last year, though, Dan, I don't like that's an inaccurate statement. I'd be curious to hear from Dub Nation, 888-957-9570. Are we all in on believing on Draymond Green now? Or if you're not, what do you need to say? What do you need to see from him? Just where are we at, Warrior fans, on Draymond Green? I want to hear from you guys. 888-957-9570.
He's the same guy, and he'll always be the same guy. It's simmering, right? It hasn't exploded, but he's still the same cat.
I realize how ridiculous it sounds saying, like, no, I think he's better this time.
Well, because he's
figured it out. Guys, I really think he's different this time.
Listen, if he's going to punch Jordan Poole into next Tuesday and then take time off and go through all of that personal internal work and trying to find out who he is as a person, that was supposed to be the first lever of change. I've got to find out who I am, and this isn't, forget about basketball, I have to change as a person. Yeah, okay, I'm buying it. I think he's going to change. 6 months later, he's got Rudy Gobert in a headlock. Well, I'm going to change after this. I'm getting suspended for 5 games. I've got to change. You talked about it, what he did to Nurkic, and that was an indefinite suspension. He contemplated retirement.
So he says.
I've got to change. Steve Kerr. I can't handle another Steve Kerr press conference or a Draymond Green press conference. It
got exhausting. Well,
it's probably going to happen. But the idea of him, wait a minute. Now I'm really going to change because I just got suspended indefinitely. So I got suspended for 17 games, 12 after Nurkic. I'm going to change. And I'm sorry, brother. I still love you. But you are who you are, all right? You're a little,
but at the same time,
stable.
But at the same time, though, Dan, I mean, it's hard to deny the attitude that you're seeing from him on a day-to-day basis and the play that you're seeing from him on a game-to-game basis. It's so much better than what we've seen these last couple of years.
Oh, yeah. He's keeping his nose clean for now.
If you want to say that if you want to sit there and say, no, he has not completely changed, yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I don't think he got thrown out of the game last night. You know, there's still going to be a little bit of Draymond, but we all know that you need that little bit of Draymond.
Doubt.
The Draymond Green in his prime was still getting teed up. The Draymond Green in his prime was still getting thrown out of games. You know, the Draymond Green in his prime chased Kevin Durant away. Like, Draymond Green has never been without his issues, never been without his problems. I mean, he went an entire month where he's kicking guys in the nuts during the playoffs. Like, it's always been controversial. The guy sat in a luxury box at an A's game while an NBA Finals game that his team was playing in was taking place, 300 yards away from him. Like, so the craziness of Draymond Green, the suspensions, the frustrations there, like, those aren't new. Those are never going to go away. But this is the thing, the but here with Draymond Green has always been, as long as the production outweighs the nonsense, I can look the other way on it. It's going to be harder some days than others. But when he punched Jordan Poole a couple of years ago, that was a breaking point for me. Because now your nonsense has compromised this season. It's compromised a very important player in the Warriors rotation. And when we had to ship Jordan Poole away, it compromised the Warriors' future. Now, I'm not saying that Jordan Poole was going to be the dude who took over for Steph Curry, but Jordan Poole was expected to be one of the focal points of the next generation of Warriors basketball.
Well, that was a mistake in and of itself. That's a whole nother conversation.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We don't need to go down that conversation then. But this year, though, with Draymond Green, it feels like the pendulum has swung back. The nonsense is down. The production is up. And if we're going to crush Draymond Green during the dark times, let's prop him up and acknowledge the fact that he's getting the job done as he's expected to right now.
Okay, maybe this is getting misconstrued. I'm not crushing him.
Oh, no, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying, in the last couple of years, we've crushed Draymond Green for the nonsense outweighing the production. A lot of people love coming at Draymond during that time. Say, as the pendulum swung back here, let's give the guy his credit. He's doing the right things this year.
I think he's always been the same guy. And to your point, that's who he is. And he has to be that. He has to live on that razor's edge. He has to be at that emotional level in order for him to be the productive basketball player that he is. He's wired differently. But the idea of change, I just cannot be sold that bill of goods anymore. He may be keeping it under wraps, but it's still there simmering, just like, that volcano out in the Kilauea out in Hawaii. At some point, it's going to erupt because things don't change at this age of your life. I don't want to hear about change. Do I like the guy? I've always been a Draymond Green fan. And I know that's difficult to say because there's a lot of warts on the guy, but he is who he is. And the idea of somebody trying to tell me, not you specifically, but Draymond Green and maybe even the Warriors PR staff that, no. This time it's different. No, it's not, but that's okay because I don't want the cat to change. The phone lines are open once again at 888-957-9570. Let's get out to Greg, who's on the road and wants to talk about Draymond. Greg, what's going on, man?
Hey, Greg.
Hey, man. I hear you guys talking about Draymond and whatnot, but and speaking of change, I mean, him doing the work or saying that he had to do the work in order to change. Sometimes you have to read a book twice in order to understand it. You know what I mean? Some people have to read them 3 times before they really understand it. And maybe he actually gets it. You know what I mean? Of course he's going to be the same, the same guy fundamentally, but, changing the nuance of what he's doing on the court and how he's acting towards his teammates and whatnot, that can be accomplished. It's just basketball, man.
Thanks, Greg.
Well said.
Did you see last night? So I spent years defending him that he wasn't a dirty player. Like, I know he's highly emotional, but I wouldn't go there. Going back to 2016 when he got suspended and he hit he hit LeBron on the package when LeBron stepped over him. I said that was just instinctive. That was inadvertent. I don't think there was any purpose behind that. I even defended him as far as when he kicked Steven Adams in the package.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was also everyone started going through Zapruder's film style, looking for past instances of Draymond kicking his leg out. And yeah, he did have a habit of doing that. So,
but I think I am representative of the typical sports fan. Like, if he played for any other team, I would say that is one of the dirtiest SOBs I've ever seen, and I can't stand him. When he's with the Warriors, because we're familiar with him, I give this guy a pass. And I know that he is who he is, but I enjoy him. I like his personality. Maybe that's on me, but I enjoy the way he plays, and I love the energy. And as you mentioned, the Warriors feed off of that. But at the end of the day, he is a dirty basketball player. Did you see what it is that he did last night? You want to talk about change and kicking Steven Adams? This is very subtle. Maybe a lot of people haven't talked about it or saw it. But when he felt as though he was fouled on a drive against Zach Edey, and they both tumbled, and Zach Edey picked up the ball, and they started to go the other way, and he grabbed Zach Edey. You couldn't see it in real time, but as they replayed it, he's got Zach Edey by the ankles, and he puts this little move on his ankle, and I'm like, bro. So, again,
and you see it's those moments like that. Yep.
But, Sammy, let's just take you back to last year. Remember the tenuous ground he was on after he came back after the indefinite suspension? And everybody's like, oh, my goodness, he was on pins and needles. If he even looks at a referee crooked, this could be the end of his career we were talking about. We may never see Draymond again if he gets another technical. Remember that feeling? Mm-hmm. Just think about where we're at today, what it is that he did to Zach Edey, where they replayed it, and they said, that's a technical. Can you imagine if he did that to Zach Edey after coming back from that indefinite suspension, where Draymond Green would be today?
He probably would not be on the Warriors active roster right now if that was the case last year. But I think that's, nothing ever changes overnight. I'm not going to sit here and say that, I'm not going to sit here and say this is the new Draymond Green. All I'm simply going to say is that what we're seeing from Draymond right now is he is doing and playing in a way that I think a lot of Warrior fans wanted to see from him last year. The edgy stuff like that, the grabbing Zach Edey, you don't like it. But I think we're all at a point where we know that complaining about it isn't going to make it go away. It's on the Warriors there to have controlled that years ago. And the fact of the matter is the Warriors have never once controlled Draymond Green. They've always kind of placated him. We've had Joe Lacob come into the studio here on the Morning Roast and talk about Draymond Green and talk about he's not gonna sugarcoat anything with Draymond Green. But then he goes to start sugarcoating everything with Draymond Green. I'll always remember Mike Dunleavy's intro presser where they asked him about Draymond Green, and Lacob said, we got a guy here that he knows that he's got to change things, but we fully believe that he's going to change. It's all good. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. I remember listening to that time, and I'm just like, they don't get it. Like, the biggest issue for Draymond Green, or one of the bigger issues with Draymond Green on the Warriors, is that the Warriors constantly just have done very little to rein him in. He cursed out Kevin Durant on the sideline, and they made him miss a game. He punched Jordan Poole, and they had him just take a weekend away from the team. He didn't miss ring night. He didn't miss any regular season games. Eventually you get to a point where, if your superiors aren't going to punish you for your transgressions, why should you really be all that worried about any sort of repercussions for those transgressions when it's become obvious that the in-house punishments won't work? That's why the league needed to step in last year and drop the indefinite suspension on him. And I don't know if it registered right away, maybe having the offseason to think about it, maybe seeing Clay leave and that reality setting in. Kind of, again, is it a full wake-up job? Who knows? But Draymond's smelling the coffee right now, and he's realizing there's changes that need to be made. And you're seeing it in how he's playing every night on the floor.
I think he's playing really well, but I don't see change. He's still the same cat, man. He's still grabbing dudes by the ankle.
We have a
He's
bet.
still working
We
refs.
have a bet on the morning roast right now of over under 65 games that Draymond Green will play this year. I believe Bonte has the over, Shasky has the under.
Put me on that
one.
under.
Really? All right.
888-957-9570.
Starting to feel that over.
Let's get the Cruisers hanging out in the 209.
Oh, my man, Cruiser.
Wait, Cruiser, can I guess where you are on the 209? Are you in Dos Palos?
I am not. I'm over here chilling just outside of River Islands. River Islands is overrated. You don't want to go there.
In Lathrop?
Yes, sir. I'm in Lathrop.
Love River Islands. Gotta discover the islands.
So, yeah, whatever. Hey, what's up, my brother Loveman and Devon? Look, man. Look, I agree with you, but you can't have it both ways, okay? What I mean by that is Draymond's greatest strength is also his greatest weakness, okay? We need him to turn it up at times defensively. He does it, and at times that his radiator overboils, and then once it blows, we all know what happens, okay? So I think, however, I didn't see the game last night, so everything that happened, I'm hearing about it after the fact. But I'm thinking now with Clay leaving, I think that Dre kind of he hasn't pulled a 180. He's not a different person all of a sudden, but I think now he's realizing that there's a shelf life on everybody, including him. And if you were to ask me like years ago, which one of the three would be the first one to be gone, I would have said Draymond because of his attitude and because of his antics, right?
Yep.
But now it's apparent that obviously Clay is out, and I think Dre is kind of realizing that, hey, without Clay, all right, the Stool's already lost one of its true supports. So now he realizes that he still needs that dog to be effective, but at the same time, he's also realizing that there isn't another person on the team like Clay that's going to bring it, but at the same time also serve as a leaky part of the vessel. And there's also no one else on the team that's going to be have that attitude like Poole did. I'm not saying he deserved to get hit. I don't agree with that. But at the same time, Poole was kind of having an attitude like he was getting bigger than his britches. And then Clay last year, we already knew that he was in a bad space mentally because he wasn't where he thought he deserved to be, perhaps, right? So, but now that he sees the team gelling, he doesn't necessarily have to be that angry guy to kind of boost the team because everybody seems to be pulling their own weight. So him getting tossed last night, again, I didn't see it. I heard about it. So but from what I've heard, it kind of sounds like the officiating last night was frustrating to begin with. So with a guy like Draymond, he's going to lose his patience with something like that. And these refs now, you're right. He has a reputation. It's not going to take a whole lot for him to get tossed. So this is going to happen. This is Draymond we're talking about. Okay. But as far as him completely changing, I don't think that's happened. Rather, I think he's realizing now he doesn't necessarily have to be the one to do something crazy in order to stimulate the team. I think they're able to do that on their own. And things like last night are going to happen now and then. But by and large, I think he's really playing more focused, more controlled than he has been because he realizes now his needs are going to be elsewhere, and he doesn't necessarily have to be the bull in the china shop. So we'll see. I'm not going to give away my jerseys, my Draymond jersey just yet, but we'll see. We'll see. But I'm still just fingers crossed that we're going to have a heck of a season. Love, you still owe me some money, Reese, bro. You're not off the hook.
Oh, man, we'll make it happen at some point, man, all right? We'll get you out to a Giants game next year. We'll make it happen, all right? How are the onion rings out in River Islands?
Oh, no, dude. No, you got to get the onion rings from the Bay, bro.
Okay, all right. We'll get better onion rings then. All right, sounds good, Cruiser.
Cruiser with some good points on Draymond Green. Look at Draymond is who he is, and he has to live and be on that high wire act, I think, at this point. He's always got to be, the worst case scenario for a Draymond Green performance, if I'm watching the Warriors, if you get the feeling like he's disinterested, if he's not working the referees, if he's not running to Steve Kerr on the bench saying, replay that.
He's not pointing out, telling pods where to go stand. Yeah.
If I don't see that, or he's not running onto the floor and picking up Moody if he crashes into the basketball standard, then I'm like, he's not. And it happens throughout the course of 82 games. You take some nights off. When he's not bought in.
Well, that was the entire 1920 season.
The Golden State Warriors are not a good team. So keep in mind that you take the good with the bad. He's going to ride refs. He's going to get tossed. He's going to do things that might abhor some people, but that's who he is. That's who he's always been. And that's what the Warriors rely on, is that emotional intensity. So you take the good with the bad. We'll continue with the Draymond Green talk. We'll talk about the Golden State Warriors now 10-2 on the season. Are they for real? We'll address that next. Sam Lubin, Dan Avone, Jersey Ken here on a Saturday on Warriors This Week.
Curry and Williams collide. Curry the steal. As there was contact there, Curry stops at the hash mark. New Millennium fast break for number 30. And that 3 ball gives Golden State a 13-point lead.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
In a game that the Warriors pretty much had in control right from the outset, they hang on in an ugly fourth quarter to win it over the Memphis Grizzlies. They improved to 10-2. Up next on Monday, affair with the Los Angeles Clippers as they look to atone. The Clips, one of only 2 teams, that being the Cleveland Cavaliers, that have defeated the Golden State Warriors this year. By the way, the Cavaliers, undefeated, yet very little talk, or at least any sort of notoriety for a team that's looking to go 15-0. I don't know, some disrespect for what could be the coach of the year, Kenny Atkinson.
Former Warriors assistant coach Kenny Atkinson. Yeah, it's Cleveland's off to the best start of any team since the Warriors' 24-0 start back in the 15-16 season.
Yeah, it's a legitimately good basketball team.
It is a very, very good basketball team. I mean, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell have been a great 1-2 punch. Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, that's just an unfair pair to have down low under the rim there. So they are a lot of fun to watch.
They were good last year. It's just the injuries that sort of, and it's one of those that, if you're a coach, everybody wants an opportunity to be an NBA coach because there's only so many positions that are available, but you want to go to the right situation. Mm-hmm. Steve Kerr coming to the Warriors where the foundation was sort of put in place.
He had the perfect players for his system.
And the same thing with Atkinson. I think, J.J. Redick to a certain degree, sometimes you get an opportunity where it's not a rebuild and you're taking over in Charlotte and you're going to get, shuttled out after 2 years. But taking over that Cleveland team, which keep in mind, went to the second round of the playoffs a year ago and had all those players coming back, they were just injured.
They've been building up for the last couple of years, too. You see them just getting better and better. The Donovan Mitchell trade was a great move for them. They've had a solid foundation for the last couple of years. And this year, it seems like, they're having their it's all coming together moment. And they are going to be a massive threat to the Celtics in the East this year.
Well, welcome back to Warriors This Week. And this week saw the much-awaited return of one Klay Thompson, who came back this time in a different uniform, playing for the Dallas Mavericks. And the Golden State Warriors and the Mavericks played in what there's only one way to describe it, and I think that was an epic regular season game. That was a game that had the playoff intensity. Not first round playoff. That was semifinal Game 7 semifinal intensity. And the Warriors came up winners. I think it goes a long way in terms of trying to explain away last night's sort of lethargic performance on the part of the Warriors, because I think that emotionally they were just gassed. And first of all, just your sort of overall takeaway from whether you want to talk about Klay's return, whether you want to talk about Steph closing once again, or just sort of your thoughts on what took place on Tuesday night.
It was really cool seeing. I think my favorite part of the night was when Klay walked down the tunnel and he had all the Warriors team employees
awesome.
Cheering for him. I think he had 400 team employees there giving him that ovation, wearing their captain's hats. And someone found a close-up image, or someone zoomed in close on Klay, and you could see the shimmer of a tear in the corner of his eye. That was really beautiful to see. I think Klay was kind of, from what I heard, it seemed like Klay was kind of against any sort of fanfare, which doesn't surprise me. That's just kind of the guy who Klay is. He's, he kind of likes to be low key in that sense. But seeing the emotions kind of building up behind his glasses there, that was really cool to see. I'll be honest, watching, the fact that it immediately opened up with Steph right on Klay was really cool. I think we needed to see that right off the bat just to kind of get that part out of the way. I'll be honest, though, Dan, watching that whole night play out, I'm not going to say that I wish Klay Thompson did not leave, because I do think that things had kind of progressed to a point last year where Klay had to go. It was time for him to move on. Sometimes it's just how things go in life. If you're out there driving around your car right now, or if you're listening at home, we're on the Odyssey app, which you can download for free at the App Store. There's probably been a time where you person listening have been at a job where one day things just kind of took a turn. It's no one's fault. It's just sometimes you just need to go into a different direction. And I think that's what happened last year. I don't think it's anyone's fault. I don't think Klay was, purposely trying to be one thing. I don't think the players were purposely trying to do anything in response. It devolved. And there's a lot of reasons why it devolved.
I want to interrupt for a second.
Yeah.
Do you think Clay feels that way?
Do you think Clay feel like he had to move on?
No. Do you think that Clay feels as though nobody was at fault?
Probably not. These guys, they have egos, so they're probably gonna point fingers here. I'm sure it's one of those things that 20 years from now, when we watch the docu-series on this team, that the Clay episode is going to probably be the most watched episode because there's going to be a lot of interesting nuggets there.
Holy cannoli.
Exactly. And so it just, but seeing Tuesday night, like, I wish it didn't come to that. Like, these three really should have. I think, when it was Cruiser said it, that if there was ever a guy who I thought would leave this team first, it would be Draymond. The idea of Clay being the first to go never really crossed my mind. But seeing it now, like actually playing out on the court, it's like, man, that era is actually over. Like, yes, he moved on and everything. We had all summer to kind of digest it, and we talked about it ad nauseum here at the station. We saw the 31 jersey at the beginning of the year. But when he actually stepped onto that court, and you had Franco Finn get him with the "he's back," that's where it really started to hit, like, the Klay Thompson era is legitimately over. And I'm sure there's people out there who are thinking, oh, well, maybe we'll get, a farewell season with him or something like that. That's not guaranteed. But yeah, it was, it hurt to watch. I'm going to be honest, Dan, it hurt to watch because it's just, if there was it's hard to play your entire career with one team. We all know that. But it just felt like the Warriors had everything ready for them to accomplish that, not once, not twice, but with three guys at the same time. And it just sucks that that's not going to be the case.
I'm so over it. I'm so glad that it's over.
No, to a degree, yes. I'm happy too, because again, it was a strain on both sides. Clay had a rough year last year. And there were nights where, he would basically shoot the Warriors out of a game in the first quarter. And he would go shot hunting. Remember, I think it was like about a third into the season last year, they had to have a team meeting and just be like, Clay, dude, stop. Like, and I think a big part of it is, and Anthony Slater wrote a great piece in The Athletic that came out on Tuesday morning that kind of detailed some of Clay's emotions there. And in it, he quoted Steve Kerr, and Steve Kerr was kind of talking about how, one thing we don't really talk about with Clay's injury is, I think Clay was 28 years old when he tore his ACL in Game 6. I mean, that's when an NBA player's prime is. The 27 to 32 window is the prime years of an NBA player. And Klay Thompson basically spent the entire years that would have been his prime years. I mean, think how good Clay was before the injury. The years that would have been even better than that, he spent in rehab. That's going to do something to a guy's psyche. That's going to make a guy think a certain way, and that's going to impact, and I don't care who you are, that's going to impact how he plays. And I think that's what we were seeing the last couple of years.
I think, and maybe I don't speak for all Warrior fans. In fact, I know I don't. Because I know there was the emotion that you talked about. But because the team is playing so much better this year, that as a fan, you get a little greedy. And you think about, I just know that, and I'm not necessarily a Warrior fan. I'm more objective than a lot of people here at 95.7 The Game. But I do know my
Someone
fandom.
has to be. Yeah.
And I recognize my fandom. And as a fan, to me, I hate to sound callous here, but I see a guy that no longer fit with this team, that no longer was a two-way basketball player. And the last time I saw him in a Golden State Warrior uniform, he was scoreless against Sacramento in the playing game. And guys were just using him defensively. Keegan Murray was searching him out. Harrison Barnes was like, put me on a switch with this guy because he couldn't do it defensively.
He did not have the step that he used to have.
He was a liability defensively. And what are they at right now? They're all about defense. They're all about energy. They're all about young legs. This team no longer fits what it is that Klay Thompson does. That Klay Thompson is clearly not a fit. So, again, looking at it from that narrow view.
Well, I don't know if this team fit what Klay Thompson did, because what the skill set that Klay Thompson brought to the table once upon a time fits with anything. I mean, his ability, that the catch and shoot ability, that 3-point shot, that is a fit on any team
right now.
But
do you want Klay Thompson right now on this basketball team?
But no, I think where the fit falls apart is I don't think so much that Klay Thompson was in a fit with the Warriors. I just think it's the skills are too diminished, I think, to really be at a place where keeping him made sense. Like, I think that's where it's at. It's just because the shot was not reliant. He couldn't do anything on defense. And yeah, he was never, he can't create his own shot.
So when I say fit, he's more of a fit in Dallas. When you have that gravitational pull because Luka's got the ball, Kyrie's got the ball. And so when you reverse the basketball, Klay, just be hanging out on the other side, set your feet, and we're just going to give you a diet of threes. Okay? That's the one thing they couldn't do a year ago. That, to me, quote unquote, is a fit. What the Warriors are doing this year is not a fit because it's all about two-way basketball. It's a fit for Klay, as you mentioned back when he was 26, 27, 28. Right now, it is no longer a fit, in my estimation, with Klay Thompson. That's what it is.
No, the brand of basketball that Klay is able to play, no, I don't think it fits. And I think you saw that times last year. That's why I think they try to put him on the bench, too, to try and maybe, take some of the pressure off of him. And, he did to the best of his ability to kind of run with that move to the bench. But, when you're Klay Thompson, that's where I think the mentality of it comes in. Like, his entire life on the Warriors has always been you're the number 2 guard, but next to Steph. You're in that starting lineup, you're two-way Klay, and it's almost like he lost his Warriors identity in a sense. Like who he was on the Warriors. Like the Klay Thompson of old was long gone. We had this new Klay Thompson that you saw it every now and then, but it wasn't the Klay Thompson that we expect on the Warriors. And I definitely think, I honestly think, Dan, most of the issues with Klay and the Warriors last year were psychological, were mental, were behind the scenes. Because there were times, he still was one of the top 3-point shooters in the league last year. I think, 2 years ago, he led the league in threes. Yeah. He was right up there again last year. So he had the ability. The problem was, and I'm sure at some point you're going to start to see this in Dallas too, was that the unreliability of the shot and the mental spiral that he would then go into when he couldn't find that shot. I mean, how many times were we staring at Klay going at 0 for 6, 0 for 7 night to start things off? And then, of course, in the fourth quarter, he would hit a 3, and then he's finally found it with 5 minutes left in the fourth. That's just too late in the game most nights. So that's where I think that
they're beginning to see it in Dallas.
Yeah.
Because he got off to that hot start, and now they've lost 4 in a row. And Klay Thompson, for those of you that don't follow Dallas Maverick basketball, that game he had against the Warriors was sort of the outlier. In the first 2 games of the season, he was really good. But and even some would say that was an okay performance, but that was one of his better shooting performances. So over the last, I'd say, 2 weeks, it hasn't necessarily worked with the Dallas Mavericks because of what it is that you just said, because he's not shooting it like he did in the early part of the season. And that's the sort of Klay that Dallas is now going to be aligned with. By the way, did you guys happen to see, and this is why I don't think it's going to work with Dallas, because you got a team that has its 2 best players that are 2 of the worst defensive players, and albeit they bought in, I mean, it's worth mentioning, towards the second part of last year, their defense was very good. And Luka suddenly was like, hey, I'm going to play a little defense. And same with Kyrie, believe it or not. But to me, if defense isn't in the DNA, it's not going to work, man. It's got to be instinctive. You can't be reminded to play defense. And now that you add Klay into that mix, that's now you got 3 guys that, offensively you could talk about it, but on the other side of the
they have all the shooting and all the spacing in the world. Defensively, it's got to be a bit of an adventure here. I mean, Dan, just looking at kind of the tail of the tape here and seeing what the numbers that Klay's doing, 14.8 points a game to start the year off. That would be, again, we're 12 games into the season, but that would be the lowest per game scoring total he's had since his rookie season. Look at, offensive and defensive rating again, under the asterisk or under the umbrella of, it's still early in the season. He's got a 117 defensive rating, which is in line with what he's been putting up the last couple of years with the Warriors on defense, and a 110 offensive rating, which is just a tick above his career average there. So on the rating wise, it's about in line with what you would expect. But you look at the game-by-game basis, though, Dan, he has only crossed the 20-point threshold twice so far this season. As you mentioned, in that opening game against the Spurs, and then, of course, on Tuesday night against the Warriors. Those are the only times that Clay has scored more than 20 points in a game. So, yeah, he's not putting up those same kind of Clay numbers that we're kind of expecting him to see. And what I kind of worry about in Dallas is here with the Warriors and the Warriors fan base, you have the love that 4 rings brings you and the leash that provides. I really hope that things don't turn south with Clay in Dallas because he's got no equity with that fan base. No.
And I think that when you're sort of put in the position that he's in, that he's going to, listen, it's a somewhat of a tempered market. It's not New York. It's not Philadelphia. So the knives won't come out and necessarily go after him like they would in those markets. But, he'll hear it if they don't play well. Look I wouldn't say that this is a different Clay. This is sort of what I think why the reason why is, again, getting back to me as a fandom, I was completely fine with him going out the door because the Warriors are better without him physically. And also I think that he became somewhat of a cancer in the locker room. And that was part, we talk about the joy and everybody being sort of bought into this year's team. A lot of it is because Clay's no longer here. And whatever rift that existed between him and management, it was real. But I do want to get back to just really quick what I was talking about and my thoughts on Dallas's defense. If you happen to watch the game the other night, who's it they were playing? Oh, Utah. So they lost to Utah. They lost to the Warriors and they lost to Utah. They've lost 4 in a row.
Well, hey, man, when you got Larry Marketing leading your team, you got to watch out for those guys.
And so the game is in overtime. Clay hits a bucket with seconds to go, a 3 to tie it up in OT. There's just about less than 10 seconds to go. And so here comes Utah with the basketball, and Jordan Clarkson has it, and he throws, there's seconds left, right? He just throws a bullet pass to a guy who's wide open under the hoop who dunks it for the win. And you look at it, and it was a snapshot. It was just absolutely one of those, what do they call it, a microcosm of who they are defensively. And you look at it, and Luka is just standing there. Like the game's on the line. And that's
the Luka effect.
And Luka is literally got his back to the basketball, and the guy catches it and dunks it in front of him.
Was he complaining to a ref?
No, he just stood there. And it was one of the, I don't think I've ever seen that before. And that to me is quintessential as to who the Dallas Mavericks are defensively. That summed up who he is as a basketball player. Disinterested on the defensive end, but one of the best offensive players. But anyways.
Yeah, no one was looking at the Mavericks last year as a defensive juggernaut. That just looked like a team
But they played better, though.
They played well. It's just
defensively, they bought in towards the latter part of the season, which is one of the reasons why they went as far as it did.
Yeah, I feel like the Mavericks were a team last year that in the second half, they just caught fire. And I thought they would come out of the West when the playoffs started, just because when the playoffs started, the last 3-4 weeks heading into the playoffs, I don't think there was a team in the West that was playing better basketball than the Dallas Mavericks last year. At least in the Western Conference. I mean, the Celtics, I think, the Celtics were far and away better than the rest of the competition in the NBA. The Mavericks just happened to be the hottest team in the Western Conference when the playoffs started. And, they rode that hot wave into the finals, and they gave us the answer to the question, is it better to be good or is it better to be hot?
Yeah.
And, their magic kind of, wore out there in the finals when they ran into that buzzsaw that was Boston. And, they responded by trying to get more shooting. And, as we look at Klay Thompson, his start to the season, again, it's 41% shooting from the field. That would be a career low. 37% from 3. That would also be a career low. So, yeah, it's...
if you were the Warriors, could you not tell Dallas that this is what you're going to get?
Well, I think Dallas absolutely knows what they're getting into. With most of these big-time contracts, especially the NBA, you're paying for that first year. And then you're just going to take whatever happens in the years after that. That's kind of what the Sixers, I think, are doing with Paul George, who the Warriors tried to go in on this offseason. Paul George, he's 35, 36 years old now. He doesn't, they signed him to a 4-year deal. He is not going to be productive.
Yeah, but Klay Thompson's not even going to give you 1 year.
That's unfortunately what it's kind of starting to look like.
I want to get back to the Dallas game just for a moment, because I think that the emotion we saw, that raw emotion on the part of Steph Curry, which you rarely see, especially in a regular season game. To me, it was an FU moment to Klay. I know I might be the only guy taking it there, and I'm not saying...
No, you're definitely not the only person taking it there.
Oh, really? Is this...
We took a lot of calls that morning after that. There is the belief that there is animosity between Klay and Steph. I mean, we know that Steph wanted to address the crowd beforehand. Klay nixed it. Klay didn't want a whole lot of fanfare. And yeah, I do think there is still some bitterness with Klay Thompson.
I don't know if there's bitterness.
I think there is a little
unless
bit.
I'm aware of it, I can't speak to conjecture about the friction that may or may not exist. I just know what it is that I saw. And that was that emotional hoop towards the end of the game. And it was Steph Curry saying, "Get the hell out of town. I've heard enough about this. This is still my house. I built this SOB. This is about me and this basketball team in the city of San Francisco. And it starts with Steph and the last name Curry." And Klay Thompson, you and your captain hat, see ya, my man, because this is my world. Now, again, does it mean that he hates the two? I don't know. Maybe you can speak on that end more than I can. I have no idea of any history between the two. I'm just saying for that one raw moment, it was Steph Curry saying, "F you, Klay Thompson." And I think it's rather interesting that Klay Thompson doesn't speak to these guys. He doesn't pick up a phone and talk to Draymond or Klay. There's no existing relationship between the two. So maybe there is something to what it is that you're talking about. But just for that moment in a vacuum, it was about Steph Curry saying, "I'm still the dude." Mm-hmm. And
this is my house.
This is about me.
Well, I do think, when you shimmy on Steph, in his own house, I think that kind of woke him up a little bit. I look at it as this. It's just like, you're going against your brother. You don't want to lose. And there's a little bit more of a charged energy here. That was the first time that Steph and Dre took on Klay Thompson. And it's kind of like, when you break up with a girl, the next time you see her, you want to make sure that you're looking better. You got, that your new girl's better looking, or that you're better looking than when you left her. I think there's a little bit of just like, you want to say that, hey, we won this breakup. There's still love, but we won this breakup here. And I feel like that's kind of what Steph was trying to do. He just wanted to say that, hey, when Klay leaves this building, I want everyone to know the Warriors are the ones who are on top of this right now, not the Mavericks. That's what I saw there.
I don't see it as team so much as player specific. Klay Thompson.
Steph Curry, I'm in the better situation than you, Klay Thompson. I mean, if the Mavs win that game on Tuesday night, the entire storyline is, Klay was right to leave. Man, the Warriors really screwed up letting him go. But instead, I think we ended up getting the best possible night. We got a great night from Klay Thompson, but the Warriors won, which means we got to enjoy what made Klay so good. But at the end of the day, the bigger picture is the Warriors are better off right now than they were last year.
No doubt about it. All right, let's talk about the Golden State Warriors this year. We do it every week, but is it sustainable? Where are you at now? 888-957-9570. Is this for real? Is this team not only headed to the playoffs, but just how far can they go? We'll talk about it next. Sam Love and Dan Devone here on Warriors This Week.
Pass goes to Jackson Davis. Spins a wave and gets a dunk coming down the baseline. Jared Jackson Jr. overplayed him, and he made him pay.
Yeah, he overplayed him about a second earlier, and TJD didn't take the advantage. That time he didn't miss it.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Sam Lemon, Dan Devone, Jersey Ken. That guy, Trace Jackson Davis, continues to be my favorite player. Just love the attitude. I love the cerebral sort of approach he has to the game. Pick and roll.
Talk about fit. He's been fitting very well this year.
Good hands around the basket. Mm-hmm. He can test everything. He's a viable big body.
Knows where to go.
Just, yeah. Never out of place. I'm just a big Trace Jackson Davis
fan. I've really liked him a lot, too. There's just a lot. What I'm really enjoying in this season, and we'll talk about what makes this season sustainable in a minute, but what I'm really liking early on in this season is the TJD Steph pairing. In that so many times, there was a moment last night, I believe it was in the third quarter, Steph noticed he had a double team on him, draws a double team away from him and creates a wide open lane for TJD, does a quick behind the back pass to Trace Jackson Davis for the slam. You've been seeing a lot of those this year where Steph just opens up these lanes for Trace Jackson Davis and feeds him the ball there. And it's just one of the just very subtle aspects of Steph's game that I'm really liking this year. And the way he's able to get TJD involved, it's been a lot of fun early on here.
Well, you talk about the shooting by that of Draymond Green earlier in the show and why that's so vital. It's because it's often said that, listen, if Trace Jackson Davis isn't going to space the floor because there's no reason to guard him if he's out on the perimeter, and the same can be said about Draymond Green, well, that just does not give you a lot of avenues to attack or a lot of room on the floor for, there's just not a lot of real estate for Steph Curry to do his thing. If you have two players who you don't necessarily need to even pay attention to, and it gets even worse. And one of the reasons why I don't think Jonathan Kuminga's in that starting lineup, because Jonathan Kuminga, one of the things that he has not been able to at least do with any sort of consistency at this juncture of his career is shoot the three. And I think if you're going to play the three, that's got to be part of your bag. And although Andrew Wiggins has not didn't shoot it well last night, he shoots it better than Jonathan Kuminga and is more of a threat than Jonathan Kuminga. But as long as Draymond can step out, that's so important in terms of not only him making baskets, as you alluded to, and him becoming a better basketball player on both ends of the floor, but in terms of the overall balance. Because as we talk about Trace Jackson Davis, he's not going to give you anything from the perimeter. But if Draymond can be a threat and Andrew Wiggins can begin to hit his threes, and of course we know what Steph does, just in terms of the overall offensive approach, it's almost a prerequisite that those guys be able to step outside and be somewhat of a threat.
Yeah, and you see Kuminga, he's trying to work on that shot. It's just, 3 of 13 last night, 4 from 3 as he only is able to score 8 points. But, I mean, he's got He's averaging about 17 a game off the bench.
He's been good off the bench.
He's been phenomenal off the bench. We make such a big deal about who's on the bench and who's not on the bench, who starts and who doesn't start. But the fact of the matter is, the reason the Warriors are off to the great start that they are this season is because of the production that Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield have had coming off the bench. Now, yeah, he probably does need to get that shot down. He does need to work on that shot a little bit more if he is going to move it over to the 3 spot. I think he is more of a 4, though, but unfortunately, Draymond's kind of occupying that, and that was, I think, a conversation that, kind of caused some consternation among some Warrior fans early on before the season started where Kuminga plays, because I do feel like he is kind of more fit for that 4 spot that Draymond currently occupies. But what do you do there? Okay, so if you have, and whatever your lineup is, let's say if it would have been Melton, or if you have Steph and Moody there as your backcourt, and then you have Wiggins there at the 3, Kuminga at the 4, then you got to do Draymond at the 5. I don't know if having Draymond play center to start off every night is the best move, especially because I think Trayce Jackson-Davis just done such a great job out of that center spot so far to start the season. So, yeah, there's kind of a bit of a lineup crunch right now with Jonathan Kuminga, and what's a very important season for Kuminga because he is a restricted free agent after this season, and you bet teams are going to throw someone's going to throw too much money at him, and that's a bridge to cross when we get to it. But yeah, I just don't know how you get Kuminga into that 4 spot unless you have him come off the bench right now.
Yeah, Jonathan Kuminga continues to be a work in progress, and at some point, hopefully, we're going to get to a point and recognize some consistency and remove the potential tag. Because it seems as though we've been doing this for at least 3 years now, that we're talking about, could this be the year? Could this be the game? Could this be the stretch where Jonathan Kuminga comes into his own and becomes that number 2? Because it's really vital on this basketball team. As exciting as the start is, and as exciting as the win against Dallas, the wins against Boston, all of these significant wins against OKC, and as often as we talk about how different this team looks, Steve Kerr's never given 13 guys run, a 12-man rotation. Are you kidding me? This is so different.
And it's working.
But at the end of the day, as different as they are, they're still very much the same, because it's still about, when you talk about that Dallas game as an example and how different this team is in 2024, at the end of the game, it's still about Steph and Draymond. It's still about Draymond locking you up on defense towards the end of the contest, and then Steph driving you across the finish line. So my only concern continues when we talk about sustainability as it relates to a Jonathan Kuminga and the Warriors as a whole. Who's the number 2 in terms of scoring the basketball? If Steph, for whatever reason, blows a tire, he's played a lot of basketball, can't go, or if Steph is having an off night, who is that other person? Is it Jonathan Kuminga? Is it Andrew Wiggins? Is it somebody in-house? Because I'm not a big proponent of the trade deadline and these guys just auditioning to bring in Giannis or some big name. But in-house, if that's the focus, Jonathan Kuminga has got to take that step. And it gets to a point, I know he's only 22, but at some point you run out of patience because he's got to give you a consistent 18 to 20. And he and Wiggins are the 2 guys on that team that can get baskets on their own. Buddy Hield's going to come off a pin down. Buddy Hield's got to be open to a certain degree. But yeah, I know he can cross you up and step back and get a 3, but he's more effective, I think, as a catch and shoot guy. Those guys that when it's not going well offensively and the Warriors aren't hitting 3s are the 2 guys that can create a mid-range and can also get to the basket. So it's imperative that either Andrew Wiggins becomes the Andrew Wiggins of 2 years ago, where he was giving you 19 points a game consistently, or Jonathan Kuminga finally recognizes how to sort of score at a consistent level where this whole thing slows down and he's not dribbling into traffic or becoming that guy where things get sped up and he gets out of control.
Yeah, and I think it's using his physical tools to get in there. It's just, if the shot, I don't see him as having that shot. It might not ever truly develop to the point to where that level is, but
can he be your number 2? Because that's the question going forward.
Yeah, because that's kind of what has to be there. It's going to be tough to be that number 2 if he doesn't have that jumper working. And because he can get inside and score,
I don't care how he does it. I don't care if it's the jumper. I don't care if he's doing it predominantly through a mid-range. Can he be that second option? Because right now they don't have one.
No, right now, I mean, Buddy Hield's probably the second option on this team right now. I mean, you look at when Steph was out, I mean, Buddy Hield was the one who kind of had to step up a little bit. Pod stepped up a little bit there. But for the most part, Buddy Hield has been your second option here coming off the bench. Right now, based on what I've seen, no, I don't know if Jonathan Kuminga can be that bona fide number 2 scoring option until he gets probably a more consistent shooting stroke there. And maybe that comes. You know, you saw it at times last year, though to be honest, as much as I do like Jonathan Kuminga, right now I just don't know if he's ever going to profile as that kind of player right now. Like, if I put the over-under on All-Star games at 2, like, I think I'm probably taking the under there. If I put it at 1.5, like, he might make 1.
Are you giving him an extension?
Right now I would, but I'm not gonna.
You're contradicting yourself. If you don't think he's that guy, you're going to give him $35 million a year.
I wouldn't give him that kind of money.
Well, that's the extension going.
I know if he wants Scotty Barnes money, he's not getting Scotty Barnes money. Right now, he is getting sixth man money at best. That's what I think he's getting right now. But if you can get that jumper going this year, though, and again, scoring has not been an issue for Kuminga. He is scoring, and again, 17 a night off the bench, tops in the league. He's obviously scoring. We know he's got some defensive ability, but I think he's too good for this team for them to just let him walk. But I don't know if he is quite good enough to get the deal that he's probably thinking that he should be getting right now.
There's scoring, and then there's scoring late in games. And that, I guess, is what it is that I'm alluding to. Who is that guy, aside from Steph? Because Steph can't drive you home every single game, every single close game, every single big game. Maybe he can, because he's that amazing. But who is the one guy that in a nip and tuck affair, that when you get into these quote-unquote clutch games, that you feel confident when the ball's in his hands? You know, there's always that sort of gut feeling at the end of games, oh, the ball's in Wiggins' hands. How do I feel? Or the ball's in Steph's hand. I'm like, oh, God, okay, something good's going to come out of this. Because Steph recognizes when he gets blitzed or double-teamed, he immediately recognizes and passes out of that. You just know that he's got that in his bandwidth to do the right thing. I don't have those assurances with anybody else.
Buddy Hield? Well,
Buddy Hield is more of he's a shooter. So when Buddy Hield has it going, feed him, right? Mm-hmm. Do I feel comfortable with him with the ball in his hands towards the end of the game? It just depends on whether he's got it going that night. I'm looking for consistency. And so the question then becomes, can Jonathan Kuminga, how do I feel in the latter part of this season or in the middle of the season, will I get to a point as a fan where the ball's in they took the ball out of the hands of Steph Curry, and it's now Jonathan Kuminga that's got it. Can he do the right? Do I have a feeling of confidence that Jonathan Kuminga is going to get me a bucket in a close game in the waning moments?
I mean, there were times last year where we saw it happen. I mean, it was middle of the season where he got inserted in the end of that Portland game. It basically, dragged the Warriors to a victory, and that kind of set up a very strong stretch for Kuminga there towards the end of the season. So, absolutely, I think he has the ability to do so. Is he the best bet right now behind Steph on this team? I don't know, maybe not right now. But again, I think right now, if you need someone outside of Steph, it's probably Buddy Hield. After that, you might have to go to Kuminga in that situation. And I don't know, I'm probably a little bit more optimistic on Kuminga than most right now. I've always been a big Kuminga fan. I feel like the tools he has are just too good to ignore. And I do think, honestly, you're seeing one of the big complaints I used to see about Kuminga is just the lack of feel. I do feel like he is getting more of a feel this year. Like, you're starting to see that improvement. It doesn't seem like he's out of place, doesn't know where to stand. It's just you're seeing that improvement there for him. A big problem with Kuminga is that I think we all expect him to be further along than he actually is. I mean, remember, Dan, he was drafted 7th overall. Guys who are drafted 7th overall are usually starting on day one. They're usually thrown in the starting lineup. They're getting 40 minutes a night. They're saying, go out, do what you need to do. You'll learn as you go. He never got that opportunity. He never got the opportunity to go and just play through his mistakes. He was always on win-now teams. So as soon as, he started to kind of, make young player mistakes, he would get yanked off the floor. He didn't have that runway to play through and grow through his mistakes. And I do think that's kind of slowed his development up a little bit, but I don't think it takes away from the overall talent that he possesses.
Yeah, where would he be if he got drafted by Detroit? You know, at age 22, getting an opportunity to play
alongside like Cade Cunningham. I mean,
it's just curious, to your point, if he was to be playing every night, would we have this version of Jonathan Kuminga or would be much further along? You know, you bring up Jonathan Kuminga. Typically in his draft in 2021, I said this to Ev a couple of weeks back, that typically in a draft, you hit on maybe 2 or 3 guys that become stars. And usually, because the NBA draft is really risky. There's a high level of risk.
Absolutely, especially the deeper into it you go.
So think about that. What would you say that 2021 draft? I'm just going to read through 1 through 8. And it's Cade Cunningham, star? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jalen Green's averaging nearly 30 a night for the Rockets, I'd say. Budding star.
Yes, very much an up-and-coming star.
Evan Mobley, no doubt.
Stud.
Scotty Barnes, he's hurt.
Very, very good.
But a star, got paid. Jalen Suggs, maybe not Cade Cunningham in terms of notoriety, but a very, very instrumental player.
Key piece of that
dangerous Orlando team, which is very good.
They just need a little bit more shooting.
Josh Giddey might be the one guy that you would say is not as good as the others, but still a good player and still finding his way, and a guy that's doing well in Chicago after, of course, spending his first couple of years in Oklahoma. And then there's Jonathan Kuminga. There's Franz Wagner.
Done very good so far.
Very good. Every single one of those guys has gotten extensions, except for, of course, the number 7 pick that year in the lottery, that being Jonathan Kuminga.
But all those guys were starters from day one, were they not? I mean, you look at the minutes played of those top 8. You got Cade Cunningham's played over 5,000 minutes. He's been battling injuries, though. Jalen Green, 7,700 minutes. Evan Mobley, 6,900 minutes. Scotty Barnes, 7,500 minutes. Jalen Suggs, another guy, he's been battling injuries here and there, about 5,000 minutes. Josh Giddey, 64. Franz Wagner, 7,800. Jonathan Kuminga bringing up the rear at 4,813 career NBA minutes. He has had the least amount of time on the court out of all of his peers there in that draft. Again, a couple of those guys, Cunningham, Jalen Suggs, they've battled some health issues. Kuminga's been relatively healthy for most of his career. Problem is, he just hasn't been on the court because that's what happens when you're buried behind, multiple Hall of Famers. I mean, how many Hall of Famers have those other 7 guys, shared the court with on a regular basis?
So I guess it lends towards the bigger question. If I'm John, well, I guess the answer is relatively easy if you're Jonathan Kuminga. Like, where would you want to be drafted? Because I guarantee if I go to any of those teams, say Houston, even the Cavaliers, who weren't good back in the day when they got Evan Mobley, the Raptors are terrible, the Magic haven't been good, even the Thunder, when the Thunder took Josh Giddey, they weren't the Thunder of today, or the Detroit Pistons. Would you want to go to one of those teams, get run where you're a starter, and most likely get that extension and get the bag, get your $30 million without question, without having to deal with what it is that you're going through right now with the Warriors? Or would you want to go to the Warriors and learn how to do it the right way, learn how to win an NBA championship, and also play alongside future Hall of Famers like a Steph Curry and a Draymond Green, so that you have now in your resume, what it takes to win, and you also understand the subtleties of how to be a good basketball player over the duration of your career?
Well, I think, the mature answer would probably be you want to go to the team that'll teach you how to win, because with winning comes more money. A lot of these guys like Cade Cunningham, he's putting up a lot of great numbers. He's averaging 20 points a game in his career, shooting 43%, 33% from 3. Like, he's putting up good numbers, but is he ever going to play in a playoff game while with Detroit? And that's what I think you see with a lot of these dysfunctional teams that are always, floundering around the lottery is, Cade, he'll probably play, a couple more, a little bit longer in Detroit. Eventually, though, he's going to do what a lot of superstars do. Trade me. Get me out of here. You can get the money anywhere in the NBA. There's always a team out there that's going to throw a way too big bag at you. So it's about, can you find that right situation for you? Now, I do think there have been times where, Kuminga he's had some ups and downs, and that's absolutely hurt him. There were times last year where he was just completely out of the rotation, and he was having those frustrations. He went to the media during that playoff run a couple years ago to complain about his playing time. He's complaining to the media last year about his playing time. There was a belief where, the dude cut his hair last year and we're like, oh yeah, he's about to get traded. The Jonathan Kuminga doomsday clock.
What does a haircut have to do with the trade?
Yeah, new hair, new me, new team. It's all symbolic in this league. We all got to be cryptic. But yeah, I think that the Jonathan Kuminga doomsday clock was, pretty close to midnight last year. And then he has that game against Portland. And it's like, oh, that's right. This guy's really freaking good. Or he can be really freaking good. So I would like to see, I would like to see Kuminga in the starting lineup just because I feel like that's a chance for him to really kind of get more run and grow as a player. But again, the time to kind of grow as a player is kind of come and gone. Now it's your 4th year in the league. Like, this is kind of what you need to be right now. What he needs to be right now is that first or second guy off the bench, banging around the paint, get that 17 a night. If you can't get it as a shooter, you got to have to work on that. But as of right now, use the strength that are working for you right now and just be a valuable player on this team. And that's what he's doing right now. A big reason why the Warriors are 10-2 is because he's been, along with Buddy Hield, a great force off the bench. Another guy I like him with is Kevon Looney, who we've gone, almost 2.5 hours into this show, Dan. We haven't even mentioned the guy that we like to call Windex because he's always cleaning up the boards. Shout out to our guy Schleprock, obviously, with that great nickname there. The duo of him and Looney has also been fun to watch because that's great rebounding, great size there. So everyone thinks you just got to shoot the ball to succeed in the NBA. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's also more than one way to succeed as a basketball player in the NBA.
Skin a cat. Pete online, too, for Sam Lubman.
Why is that a phrase? There's more than one way to skin a cat.
I don't even want to know.
That's one of those things, like, who's sitting around? It's like, guys, it's great that we did it this way, but let's come up with some other ways here that we can skin this cat.
By the way, you were talking about the new look for Jonathan Kuminga. You have got to have the best hair at 95.7 The Game.
I absolutely do. Yeah.
You know what you remind me of? So I was doing a show and we tossed to you and you were at Friedman's Hardware and you were rocking the glasses. Are you familiar with PK and Big Cat? PFT?
Yeah. Big Cat. That's not Barstool Big Cat, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not Barstool, but his partner.
Okay.
And they're really good, as a matter of fact. But anyways, maybe.
Yeah, I did do the shades at the Friedman's.
Dude, you were
clearance
strong,
sales.
man.
I was feeling it.
That was awesome.
That was the night after Miami had beat Virginia Tech on that wild Hail Mary that wasn't a Hail Mary. So yeah, I was feeling myself that morning. So
wait, you got lucky. Virginia Tech should have won that game. I don't know how they go to replay.
No, it was incomplete. The ball hit the ground. The guy came out of bounds and touched it.
No,
the ACC refs got it right.
I don't know, man. Thanks for the smile.
And what are you talking about? I'm being completely honest here.
Did you? I know. Then listen, let's get back to Warrior basketball. But I can't do a show with you, because I know. And I was telling the story because your name came up after the Miami win over Cal, and I'm like, well, that's why Sam went to Miami, is because there was a Cal game that was played here in San Francisco. We were talking about that game, man. I tell you what,
it was so hot that night.
Were you there?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it was
Were you
crazy
at game day?
No, I didn't get up early for game day.
That was one of the best game days. Might be the best game day.
I watched it. It was a great game day. No, it was absolutely great game day. I thought about going, but again, Dan, when you wake up at 3:30 every morning like I do, doing it on a week. I mean, Lucas asked me, hey, Sam, you want to do, Warriors this weekend? And it was just like, Saturday's usually sleep-in day. Like, I'm usually waking up. Well, I'm up by now, but like, I'm usually just starting my breakfast now. Like, Saturdays are sleep-in days for me. So
Annie will be all right. Bring her down to the station like you did last time.
Oh, no, Allie's on her way. So
Allie, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. You got the A part right.
Yeah.
So she's on her way right now. She's, running late as she always is.
So Cam Ward is just like, because I'm not in on him either.
I love Cam Ward.
Yeah, all right.
He makes some bonehead mistakes every now and then. I'll be honest, if I'm sitting at number 1 and I need a quarterback, I'm taking Cam Ward over Shadur Sanders.
Just win, baby. Better hair, you or Troy Polamalu?
Ooh. Polamalu, only because he's probably put more work into it. He had that hair and shirt for $1 million.
How many bottles of shampoo are you going through a year?
How about this? I'll do you one better. I probably spend at least $140 on hair products.
No.
Uh-huh.
Wow, dude.
Exactly.
Is that, what's the over?
Not like monthly, but like.
More or less than Allie.
Oh, way more. I do way more. No, sure. Her hair is, well, she's got different hair care, her hair care routine is so different than mine, but no, like, I would say it's $140 a month, but like if I had to go and buy everything at once, it would probably equate out to $140, $160, somewhere around there.
Are you blow drying it?
No, it's air dry. Well, you towel dry it and then you air dry from there.
All right, I want to know more. All right, we got to get to a break.
I'll give you the full routine on the other side if you really want it.
I do want to get
There's
into.
your tease.
Let's talk about. I want to talk about a guy. You talk about how we overlook Looney. How about Dunleavy?
Ooh, let's give Dunleavy his props. Yeah,
Right?
I'm down.
Do that. Sam Lubman, the best hair in sports talk radio, not only in San Francisco, I'm going to say in the country. Prove me wrong, people. We'll be back right after this.
back to Wells. Baseline stops, pass in the lane, too hard off of Clark. Saved by Pajemski. A beautiful pass to Kuminga. He went behind the back going out of bounds and led Kuminga right to the rim. How did he do that?
Holy cannoli. This is crazy.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Where's the holy cannoli coming from?
It's Clay.
Yeah, but that's not part. Okay.
Yeah, Clay would say holy cannoli. How crazy was that pass from Pods to JK there? That was so cool to watch.
That was amazing.
It was a good night from Pods last night.
And that pass was right on the dime, too.
Oh, dude, it was almost like, I mean, in a pass like that, you're just chucking the ball and you're hoping. Pods probably thinks, oh, no, I did that on purpose because that's just the kind of confidence that he has. But, yeah, that was just all read, react, make a play, and boy, did they make a play. It's, again, solid night from Pods. Not so much in the first half, but they had 2 points in that first half, but ended up finishing with, what did he end up getting? 9 overall. So
yeah, it was a typical Pods game. He's just so smart, and he's rebounding. His game, he's been a little off because he's missed some time, and I think the mask has been bothering him. He finally got rid of the mask, and I think that we talk about role players and depth. He is really instrumental.
Yeah.
But you can say that about a lot of guys.
Yeah.
GP2 is so instrumental to the success of this team.
Absolutely. But GP2 is more defensively focused, obviously, whereas Pods, it's just, I don't think the defensive consistency has really been there yet. I'm kind of curious, just like when you see these guys, what their overall ceiling is, like what their best case scenario is. Like because when I look at Brandon Pajemski, like, obviously, if you asked him, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. And like, did you hear a couple weeks ago, he did an interview with Willard and Dibbs, and they were kind of talking about, like, what do you want to do after basketball? He's like, oh, I'm going to play until I'm 35 or something like that. And then I think when I'm 40, I'll pick up baseball. And he says it in a way just like, dude, I think you actually believe this too. Like,
did you see him go yard at Oracle when he was
I
taking
did. I was
practice?
standing right on the first base line when it happened. I was taking a video on Instagram, and the video timed out right before the ball went out. But like, I'm watching that, and he hit that home run, and I'm thinking that was probably the worst thing that could have happened, because now this dude actually thinks he can do this on a regular basis. Like, I love a guy who's confident, but like, it's almost kind of silly with him sometimes. How like overly confident it is. But hey, when you're making plays like that, and then I love how he got the start in the second half too, when Lindy Waters III went down. So I love that kind of, because what Pods isn't stuff in the stat sheet. Like, I love a guy who can at least give you effort and energy out there, and he does do that. But I'm kind of curious what you think Pods' ceiling is, because I see him like, I do think his ceiling is role player on a team that could play for a title, which, there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm curious, like when you look at Brandon Pajemski and his overall future, what do you kind of see from him?
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be an all-star. I see him going to some all-star games, but I think he's, there's certain players that you just look at the DNA and say that guy's going to win. I don't know if he'll win multiple NBA championships. I don't know if he wins an NBA championship, because a lot of it depends on, the stars align, who you're playing with, but that's who you win with. Like, I think guys like that are always going to be, they're going to be so coveted, because he makes this, I'm getting tired of saying this, but winning basketball plays. But that really means something. And I think guys like him, it's a reason why Caruso, guys who are undrafted that prove themselves as being vital players. Drew Holiday is like, what the hell are you thinking, Milwaukee, when you moved him? Guys like, you win titles with Drew Holiday. And I think you're going to win a title with Pajemski. Whether it's with the Warriors, I'm not exactly sure, hopefully. But, I mean, those are the guys that I think at the end of the day, you really, really put an asterisk next to and say, let's go get that guy. They become sort of foundational pieces. All right, 888-957-9570. It's the last half hour of the show, so get your calls in now. Let's get out to Millbrae and check in with Eric. Eric, welcome aboard.
What's up, guys? Yeah,
hey, Eric, how you doing?
Talking about pretty good. First Clay, and then the season so far, a great start. Their Tuesday night, just impressive. I thought the tribute by the Warriors outstanding. The Captain Clay hats was really impressive, and that they gave out, got mine. I thought the tribute video was incredible overall, and overall it was a great game, and looked like Clay really, really wanted that game, and looked like Dallas was going to put that game away when he hit that 3-point shot late there, but Curry was just incredible as usual. Just clutch Curry taking over that game, and you rarely see him get worked up. That was like against the finals against Celtics Curry when he hit the dagger to put him away in Game 6. That's as emotional I think I've ever seen him when he was saying, "This is my effing house and this is my ass." And it was just incredible. You don't rarely see him react like that, but that place was bonkers when he hit that dagger to put them away. So all in all, it was a great game, great tribute, and more importantly, the Warriors won a great game. But as far as this team overall, I just really love what I'm seeing. I really think this defense really playing excellent basketball. And the thing is, the Warriors are winning the games they have to go. Remember last year how many games they lost to terrible teams they had no business losing to. So if they lock in and play like they are right now, I think they're really going to get set. And outside of Oklahoma City, really, and obviously Cleveland in the East, nobody's really playing as great as they are. And I just love the way they strength in numbers right now. The way Kerr's using this roster is really great to see overall. And the guys like J.K. who are playing for contracts got a really chance to prove themselves. And Buddy Buckets has really been impressive. So they got a chance here to really get a good stretch over this next week here. So as long as they get rolling like they are, guys, I really feel good about this team and not having to really exert Curry as much with the way the balance of the roster is really playing with Kerr's minutes, distributing the minutes to different guys. So keep it going, guys. And so far, so good. Better than anybody Warrior expected, especially me. So keep this going, and I really love what I'm seeing out of the squad so far.
Well said, Eric.
One thing we got, I talked about this going into the break, but Dunleavy, man, at what point, I guess people still recognize that he's good. Maybe the jury's still out because there's still the hangover of Myers, who was a big personality and really sort of the architect and a lot of what it is that the Warriors did early on in Draymond Green and winning titles. But I would say, and one could argue, although I don't want to necessarily throw water at Myers, but the last couple of years, there was a lot of bad there too. Somebody on the text line threw out it seems as though every show there's at least one reference to James Weissman, right? The number 2 pick overall, and that certainly didn't work out. But Dunleavy, holy cannoli.
Let's give Mike some credit. Yeah, no, he has done a great job here in his first run, making all the decisions for the Warriors. I mean, the Buddy Hield acquisition is looking like one of the best moves of the offseason right now. And the Buddy.
Let me ask you, how much, because I know Buddy Hield was somebody that was coveted by Steve Kerr. How much is Kerr sort of pulling those strings? And certainly there's a collaboration.
They have to work in tandem there. They're definitely sitting, the way the Warriors work, they're all sitting around the room.
More importantly, how much credit are you giving to Kerr as opposed to Dunleavy?
I think this is the nature of the beast, Dan. When you're the general manager, you get credit for the general manager moves. When you're the head coach, you get credit for the head coach moves. Like, is Steve Kerr banging his hand on the table saying, "Bring me Buddy Hield"? He might be, but I mean, it's on Mike Dunleavy. Like, Steve Kerr can't tell Buddy Hield to come here. Steve Kerr can't make the pitch. He can't, give him the contract deals. It's Mike Dunleavy's job to sit down and say, "Hey, we really want you here. Steve Kerr really wants you here." And Buddy Hield's response is, "Well, then why should I go here?" And I'm simplifying it a little bit. Then Mike Dunleavy's job is to reason 1, reason 2, reason 3. Buddy Hield says, "Oh, well, dang, Mike, you got me. Let's do this." So that's where I give Mike Dunleavy the credit. Steve Kerr could go out and say, "I think if you give me this, we will win." Well, then at that point, it's Mike Dunleavy's job to go out and get this so that they can win. And to that regard, Mike Dunleavy absolutely did his job there, and you got to commend him for it. Also, you want to really commend Mike Dunleavy. There's the move he did make, but there's also the move he did not make. And that is there's the trade for Paul George, which I think the Warriors are going to be very happy that they did not make that trade. The Clippers did not want to do business with the Warriors there. So you can't blame Dunleavy for not making a trade that was never going to happen. But the Lauri Markkanen deal that fluttered around all summer long, we took so many calls on it every day. It's, do you want him? Do you not want him? Do you trade this guy for him, that guy for him? Pods is untouchable. Kuminga's untouchable. No, Moody's untouchable. But I credit him and to sitting back and rolling with what you got, trusting the guys you have in-house to be better for the team. And it ended up being the right move, not making that move, because we're talking about, the Warriors bench depth. I believe, 58 points a game is what my notes say they're doing.
Best in the NBA.
Best in the NBA. You have the best at 58.8 points in the NBA. They scored 40 points or more in 11 of the first 12 games, which is the franchise first. The reserves scored 67 last night, making it the 5th time that the bench scored at least 60 points in a game. The Warriors bench outscoring the opponent's bench in 11 of 12 games this year. That does not happen if Mike Dunleavy pulls the trigger on the Lauri Markkanen trade. And we have a little bit more of a talented player in the starting lineup, probably. But the reason the Warriors are winning this year is because of their depth. That's a big, I mean, Steph and Dre obviously are a big part of it, but Steph and Dre were a big part of things last year. How'd that work out? You got depth this year now. Honestly, Dan, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of another great trade that was not made. One of Bob Myers' earlier days, do you trade Klay Thompson for Kevin Love? And they did not make that trade. It ended up being one of the greatest non-trades, not just in Warrior history, but in Bay Area sports history, not making that move. So I'm not putting the Lauri Markkanen deal on that level, but a big part of being a good general manager, it's the moves you make, but that goes in tandem with holding off in the moves that you don't make. And Mike Dunleavy got, I believe right now, an A and an A in both of those fields this summer.
I'm curious if we're witnessing sort of a changing of the guard, and once again, the Warriors leading the way. And here's what I mean. That the Warriors, they reinvented basketball back in 2014, 2015, right? With the way they played and its chaotic style and shooting threes. And then all of a sudden it became a copycat league. And as we know, it's very homogenous. Now everybody's doing it. And they actually, teams did it. The Warriors created the recipe, the template, and then teams actually executed it better than the Golden State Warriors in the ensuing years. And so the Warriors then find themselves on the outside looking in. But they created the small ball. They created shooting threes at this frenetic pace. Now I'm curious, are they once again leading the way? Because with all the guardrails now that you have financially with the second apron, you just simply can't go out and purchase stars. You can't. It's not like it was back in the day where you can go get 3 stars, which seemed to be like that was the ingredient in order to win. You needed Bosh, you needed Dwayne Wade, and you needed LeBron James.
Like
you needed Paul Pierce, and you needed Ray Allen, and you needed Kevin Garnett. Are we seeing a new way to do it because of the restraints and the handcuffs that you have financially, that the Warriors now are saying, okay, we have a star in Steph Curry, but we're just going to do it with a multitude of guys. We're going to take the $70 million that were allocated to 2 guys, Chris Paul and Klay Thompson, and disperse that throughout the Kyle Andersons and the Moses Moody's of the world. Are we not seeing that at the end of this year, should the Warriors make a run, let's say the Warriors go deep into the playoffs, so let's say they get to the NBA Finals, do you not think that teams are going to reassess and saying, really? Should I have re-signed Zion Williamson? Do I want Kawhi Leonard? Maybe I should rethink the way we're doing it and do it the Warrior way. The Warriors changed the way the game was played. Back in the day, are they doing it once again in 2024, potentially?
I think part of the reasons why the Warriors took a step back financially this year was I do think they wanted to reset some of their cap penalties as well. Because Joe Lacob has always said that he'll spend the money if it's worthwhile to do so. So in that sense, I mean, yeah, if the plan is, obviously everyone wants to build internally. That's the easiest way to do it. Have the Warriors kind of created a new way of doing things? I think they've kind of rediscovered an alternate way of doing things, because they still have 2 mega superstars in Steph Curry and Draymond Green. And Brian Windhorst was kind of reporting it earlier, I think it was last week, a little bit more this week. The Warriors are the favorites right now, along with the Rockets, to make a splash trade. And as long as...
Don't do it.
As long as there's struggles going on in Milwaukee, as long as Giannis is saying cryptic things, as long as Doc Rivers is Doc Riversing all over the Bucks right now, the Giannis is going to be at threat of being put on the trade block.
Okay, do you want Giannis on this team?
It would depend on the package, but right now, if the goal is Operation Get Steph one more ring, that's one of the best ways to do it. Now, how they go about that deal would be a factor on it. You probably have to say goodbye to Kuminga, probably have to say goodbye to Podziemski, probably have to say goodbye to Moody, might have to say goodbye to Wiggins. But Steph, Giannis,
and draft picks.
And draft picks. I mean, draft picks are, the Warriors are going to have to punt draft picks no matter what. But if the goal is to get Steph one more ring, maybe even 2, like, you got to figure, what's more important here? Do you want to get that ring for Steph, or are you kind of doing the Joe Lacob thing and you're looking light years ahead seeing, trying to plan out the post-Steph Curry years. And part of the reason why the Warriors did not make the trade for Lauri Markkanen is because they did not think that Lauri Markkanen was a good enough player to empty the coffers for and punt the future away for in terms of a short-term burst now. And I agree with him. I don't think Lauri Markkanen would have elevated them to that level. I don't know if the Warriors right now are at that championship level. They're definitely good enough. They're going to be in contention for it. But if you can make a trade for a guy like Giannis,
don't do it.
Yeah. So you want to go hardcore strength and numbers the whole way?
Well, I'm just hard pressed for someone to show me where an acquisition of a free agent brought you a championship. Everything is done organically. Everything is done through players that you bring in through the draft that are under team control. They're not only players that you drafted, but then financially, because, like Brock Purdy, basically, to give you the football analogy, you get players that are under team control on the cheap and that are good, and they come up through your system. The Celtics won the title last year, Jaylen Brown, and obviously Jason Tatum, two guys that they drafted. The Denver Nuggets, all three of their stars who won the title before that, and Jokic and Porter and Jamal Murray, all guys that they drafted. And the Warriors, obviously. I'm trying to think of a team that has mercenaries that actually won a title. And it may have happened. It's just and it's even more difficult to do in 2024 because of the financial restraints. And if you want to tell me that Giannis at age 30 is going to be that guy where I'm now anchored to him financially and paying him upwards to $40-45 million a year, and I've just lost Pajemski, I just lost Kuminga, I just lost Trace Jackson Davis.
But at the same time,
and all of my draft picks for one cat it's been proven that it doesn't work. And nor from an entertainment standpoint, do I buy into everything being centric around two or three players. I don't think that's the way the NBA is trending right now.
Well, I think the NBA is still kind of there right now. If you did make that move, you would be one of the better teams for the next couple of years if you had Steph, Draymond, and Giannis on this. Oh, absolutely. Giannis, 30 years old. He's still got a few more years left of his prime. And more
so going from no depth to
more importantly, though, if you have a chance to reset your cap penalties, you can spend a little bit more money on free agency next year. I believe the Warriors would have their mid-level available next year, as of right now, if things progress as they are right now. But you're going to become a much more attractive destination to role player free agents. What made the Warriors so great during those championship years is because they were able to get guys like David West and Zaza Pachulia, guys like that, to kind of come in on lesser deals because they want to be on winning teams. Nick Young, JaVale McGee, guys like that. When you have a big three of Giannis, Steph, and Draymond, all those other free agents around the league, think how hard it's been sometimes for the Warriors to sign free agents the last couple of years.
You're assuming that they're going to win.
Well, yeah, if you have those three together, then you're going to say that looks like a winning team. Guys are going to gravitate to those teams. Guys want to gravitate to the Celtics. Guys want to gravitate to the Mavs because those look like teams that are on winning tracks. So when you have a superstar lineup like that, free agents are going to want to come here. They're going to want to take less money to come here because these guys want to win. They want to get a ring, and they're going to see that, we like to shame ring chasing, but does that not work?
I'm just hard-pressed for had it worked in Phoenix when they brought Beal and Durant on
Durant,
board.
I think, is past his prime. Durant's 36 years old. The explosiveness is clearly gone.
You could say the same thing about Steph. They're about the same age.
Yeah, but I think Steph's overall better right now than
But I
Kevin
guess
Durant.
just in theory.
Steph's got the explosiveness that Durant has kind of been losing.
But in theory, it's just never worked. I've never seen where, let's bring in Durant, and we got Beal, and we got Booker.
Well, it hasn't worked in the last few years because no one's really assembled a super team of free agents in the last few years.
But every time they try, let's go back in the last 10 years. I'm trying to think of that
the
team.
Miami Heat, obviously, they did it. The Cavs,
you got to remove LeBron James. LeBron James simply because he's the greatest to ever do it. So LeBron
when
James
LeBron was dominating
prime,
the East, no one else in the East was really assembling super teams to challenge him. The Rockets tried to do it when they paired Chris Paul and James Harden up.
How'd that work out?
Well, they ran into the buzzsaw that was the Warriors. So, can you really fault them that they fell short to one of the greatest collections of NBA talent in the league's history?
But in terms of any sort of sustainability,
the Raptors, their title was built around a one-and-done guy in Kawhi Leonard. That was all a free agency signing, or I think it was a trade, but that was the guy where you're bringing in one guy to build around for a year, and then he left, and that was it. The Raptors have, faded out of relevancy ever since then. And even then, you could put an asterisk on that title if you're a Warrior fan because of all the injuries that happened during that series.
But if the Golden State Warriors are anywhere near this mark, then I think trading away their future and trading away their young players for a guy who's at age 30, and granted, it's Giannis. I get it at the end of the day to be playing alongside, because chemistry is everything, and defense and what we're seeing is real. And so the idea, because we romanticize and we are so focused on, and I get it's a star-driven league, that the idea of bringing in a big name is going to resurrect things, and all you see is year after year where it does not work. And what it does is that it sets a franchise in arrears because of the financial burden, and also physically it doesn't work, and it implodes. And the team he's leaving is a perfect example. Let's bring in Dame Lillard. That's the missing piece. Again, it goes a lot deeper than that in terms of trying to build a winner. And the Warriors have found the ingredient. So if it comes to the trade deadline and they're still, they're 25 games over 500 and one of the top seeds in the Western Conference, you're still going to pull that trigger? I do think there's a level of let's let this play out, obviously. Yeah. And I think it's kind of, maybe that's a cop-out answer. But again, we're 12 games in. No, I think that's the prudent decision.
Me personally, I've told myself I want to wait 20 games before I make any sort of determination on this game, because last year, we spent 2 months prior to the playoffs talking ourselves into this belief that the Warriors, all they have to do is just get in, they can make a run. And we were all ridiculous to think that. We all were putting the cart before the horse last year. So I'm personally trying to hold off on that. But it's really hard to ignore what we're seeing right now and how well it's working. That said, I don't know if this team is truly a finished product right now.
Let's get out to Telmo in the city before we get out of here. He wants to talk about
Don't hang up on my guy, Telmo.
He's in on Giannis. What's up, Telmo?
How are you guys doing today? Here's the thing. Here's my opinion, right? The Warriors aren't in a position where they're not desperate. So they don't need to overpay for Giannis. They don't need to overpay for Giannis. They can, if the deal's there and it's a deal that is fair, obviously they're going to have to give up draft picks and players. But here's the thing that every Warriors championship team has had. A second player that can take over a game if Steph isn't doing that. Clay on any given night could put up 40, 50 when he was in his prime and hot. Durant could do that. You need to bring in a guy, if you have a chance to get a guy like Giannis, that don't need to give up everything in the world to get Giannis. But if you can get him for a package that is fair and have a chance to put a player like him, and I know you referenced the Durant and look at the Giannis with this team and Dame Lillard. Dame Lillard, Durant, one of those guys, the common thing in all this with the Warriors is Steph Curry and Draymond Green. Those guys are winners. They're passionate. They're leaders on and off the court. Steph, I think, more than off the court in his own way. And you put a player like him with them and Kerr, and I think you really, really have the best chance to win a championship.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you're going to get Giannis, Milwaukee, he's like the only thing that's worth going to Milwaukee, aside from brats and maybe some good beer. Like, he is so important. So they know that if they're going to move away from Giannis, that they're going to ask for everything. You're not getting a deal. You're not getting a package.
Oh, no, absolutely. But
we got to get out. Man, your hair is amazing. How much are you spending in products again?
$140.
And when's the last time you got it cut?
About 2.5 years ago.
And then you created this trend. Suddenly Ken, who's this clean-cut, good-looking guy with the tightly cropped beard, he starts breaking out pictures of where he was like...
He had a really good flow back in the day.
He was Slash back in the day from Guns N' Roses. All right, my man, Sammy Levin. We will talk again. That'll do it for Warriors this week. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, everybody. So long.